This evening, the art workshop is going to be about working with Asian brushes and watercolors. So you can use any watercolors that you might have in your collection. The trick is we're going to be using Asian brushes with those watercolors. I'm actually going to be using the Japanese watercolors that I introduced to you last week. This, for instance, is a set of Gansai Tambi watercolors by Yasutomo. They're Sumi-e watercolors. So Sumi-e is a type of Japanese painting. And these are Japanese watercolors and these big pans right here. Beautiful saturated colors. I made myself a little color chart, but the inside of the lid also has a place to put the colors in there. And so I could use those watercolors and do any watercolor painting technique. But what we're going to focus on tonight is using the Asian brushes. And I'm going to talk about the different kinds of Asian brushes because if you look, this brush and this brush are not the same, are they? They're different. So I'm going to talk to you about the different kinds of Asian brushes and what they do, what kind of marks they make. And then there are going to be a few tools that we're going to play with. For instance, this is so cute. I love when you can your accessories can be just beautiful in and of themselves. So this is a little brush rest. You see the fish right there? What does this look like? This looks like a certain type of there's a name for this certain type of ceramic. And maybe some of my friends over on Whatnot will know what it's called, Wade or something like that. And so this is a brush rest for when you're working with your Asian brushes. And we're going to be using rice paper, we're going to be using watercolor paper, and we're going to be holding that paper down, the rice paper down, so it doesn't fly away with a paperweight. So this is an old paperweight that I bought when I lived in Asia. The reason we're doing Asian painting is because I grew up in Asia and I enjoy it. So I thought I'd share it with you. And these are paperweights that we got when we lived in either Taiwan or Korea. You can see a bunch of Chinese writing on the back of it right there. And yeah, I love these. So these are used to hold down the paper. Now, what are besides these beautiful watercolors that I just showed you? There, and I'm holding them at an angle because they actually come right out of here. These are big, big fat pans. And the nice thing is you can buy just single ones of these pans to replace the colors as you wear the colors down, especially the white. You can see I have some yellow with the white and some blue with the white here, and that gets worn down a lot faster, right? So you're able to just pull out one of these pans and put in, they're called watercolor pans, and put in a new one. But the other thing we're going to be working with is Sumi-e ink, if you've ever heard of that. So Sumi-e ink is your typical black ink. And this is also by the Yasutomo company, right? This is Yasutomo here, and this is also Yasutomo. So notice it says Sumi ink, black Sumi ink. Okay, so this is already ground up ink for you to use. There, however, is also very traditional Chinese. You would use an ink stick. So this is a little box that contains one of my ink sticks. I have several. And here is the block. That is a solid block of ink. So I'm going to be showing you how you release the ink from the block, and you're going to be releasing it into a stone. So you're going to have what's called an ink stone. And this is kind of what they look like. There's a little well here for water. And then this is the area where you grind that stick. And the sticks not only come in white, they also come in many different colors. And if you're interested in learning more about these, there's an awesome documentary on oil sticks on YouTube. Oh, I bet there is, Mark V. It's a whole process for how they make them. The way that they gather the soot and then they'll smash it. They make it into kind of a almost a rubbery kind of there's a binder they put in with that, right? and then they smash it with their feet and roll it around, and it takes a long time for them to dry. There's a whole process. So thank you for sharing that, Mark V. Yes, yes, yes. It is very interesting. Of course, in modern times, you just grab something like this and you've got the liquid ink ready to go. But if you want to create a little more subtlety in your work and have the grays and the blacks, it's very helpful to use the stick to get those grays, which is not always easy with the liquid ink, because with the liquid ink, you have to add a lot of water to get your grays. And then when you put it on the rice paper, it spreads like crazy. And then you go, what the heck did I do wrong? Now, this is another one that I have. Uh, so sometimes you'll see them with a little top like this, and they open like this. Can you see that? Yeah, the little top opens like that, so that you're not pouring a lot out. You're just pouring little bits out using that tiny little tip right there. Okay. So I actually, the reason this is still in the packaging, right, is because I really enjoy this, where I can pour out smaller amounts with this type of ink right here. And you can just look up Sumi ink. But if you go to my website, again, deetsart.com, and you go to the menu item that says supply links, there's a whole section under supply links about the Sumi inks, or it has links that you can go to pick up the Sumi inks and to pick up the brushes and the goodies that we're going to be talking about, and the grinding stones and the rice paper that you can paint on. Now, especially for my friends on Whatnot, I want to show you something that you may never have seen before. You might have, but you may not have ever seen before. And it's something that as you are antiquing, you may come across and be like, what the heck is that? So this right here, you see that? It looks kind of like a stone, right? That is ink. Looks like a stone. See the writing on it right there, the Chinese writing. So if you find something like this, or let me show you some other ones. This is another container that I have. You see these sticks right here? And it looks weird. It's like, what the heck is that? That is an ink stick. And the old ink sticks can be highly sought after, like this one right here. This makes like a green yellow, a yellowish green, when I add water to it. And then you'll know that it's an ink stick because look at can you see the end of that? It looks kind of like it's ground down. And that's because now this is a special ink stone. You see how it's carved with a dragon and it has jade on it. I love the accessories that go along with doing the Asian painting. But so this ink stone, I would put a little bit of water in here and then take this and grind it in there, and that will give me my ink color like that. So I actually have that one. I have this one. This inkstone is kind of fun because there's a little hole in it right here. So this is designed for you to grind your ink like this and then pour it through that hole into a dish. So you can use a little ceramic dish. I love the little stacks of ceramic dishes that you can buy. Or of course, tried and true or my little plastic ones here. But this is a way you could mix your ink and then pour it into some other sort of container to work with, and then clean this out, and then you could mix another color. So isn't that interesting? And this is super heavy. This is made out of shale. These are little ones. These ones right here from my family. I used to live in Asia, Taiwan and Korea. So we bought these. My family bought these when I was a kid. And in my set, my full set, I have a big one that's super heavy that you would put on the table and then grind lots of ink. And then this is another small travel one that has some carving in it right here. So aren't those fun? Yeah, it makes doing this art form, whether it's calligraphy or doing the flowers and bugs and things, It just makes the art form that much more enjoyable when, to me, when what we're using is beautiful. The accessories are beautiful along with the actual paints, right? Yes, Flower Gazer said very cool stuff. I have a big collection of it. Actually, still in storage from my parents' estate. I have what's called a secretary, which was an old wooden chest. It's a tabletop chest that has little drawers and things that lift up. And it was specifically for all of these inks and um, the stones and everything. So I took everything out of that secretary desk when I was packing to move, and I wrapped up all of the little inks by themselves to protect them. Actually, some of them broke anyway, like this one broke, but you don't have to worry about it because this whole thing is ink, that whole thing. So I can still get ink out of it. Look at this one right here. This must have gotten wet. So you can see part of it is eaten away, but there's still, I get beautiful reds, like a magenta red out of this one. It's awesome. And I'll show you that when we get to that point. But of course, if you don't want to take the time to grind your own ink, these Japanese watercolors are quick and easy and also quite beautiful. So we're going to be using both tonight for our Asian painting workshop. Let me see, what else do I have to show you here? Because I'll be using rice paper. Rice paper is relatively thin. Rice paper is what I use just to do my testing before I move to watercolor paper. And because it's dirt cheap, and it takes the calligraphy brushes, the Chinese brushes, very well. Um, and when you're working with rice paper, because your inks can go through the rice paper as you're working, you don't want to work on the pad. So for instance, let me show you. This is my favorite sketch paper. This is my favorite Chinese paper right here, or Chinese rice paper. Let's say rice paper. This is Japanese. It's by who? Yasutomo. Yasutomo. Yes, they make all kinds of beautiful. They're a Japanese company and they make all kinds of beautiful art supplies. But this is their sketch paper, they call it. I say it's Sumi-e rice paper for calligraphy. Okay. And there's a special that these rice papers come in different weights. So some of them are super light and thin for easy practice and throw away. I use the super light ones with the Asian brushes, and then I turn them into collage paper. So I can play around on them and practice and experiment with my different Asian brushes. And then those become pieces that I can tear apart and use in my collage artwork. So rice paper is great for that. But this is a thicker rice paper. You'll see right here, it's going to tell you it's a 6H. Is that correct? Yes, 6H. So that 6H tells you how heavy it is. And so this to me is just a perfect one. If you're getting started, start with this one. You know, later, once you get more familiar with your brushes, the reason I say that is because this is thicker and it's more tough. So it'll be more kind to you to start on this one. But then once you've learned how to work with your Asian brushes and you're just doing warm-ups, then just grab those super cheap, thin rice papers and just do your warm-up and then move on to either this paper or your watercolor paper for your final artworks. So you can do your final artworks on this sketch paper, but you have to mount the rice paper before you put it in a mat. So we're going to talk about that later when we get to that point where we have a finished piece of artwork, and then what do I do to mount it? Because rice paper is flimsy. If you work on watercolor paper, you don't have to worry about that. So what watercolor paper do I recommend? Well, if you've watched me before, this is my favorite studio watercolor paper, the Canson XL watercolor paper. Like I said, you don't have to worry about remembering this. The links for this will be in the description of the YouTube video. I will leave those there. So that is the Canson XL watercolor 140 pound cold press, or you can use that has a little bit of texture to the surface. When you're working with these Chinese brushes, I find it can be helpful to start out on smooth paper instead of starting out on textured paper. So if you're used to textured paper from watercolors, knock yourself out, use the Canson cold press watercolor paper. But if you're coming from rice paper, the smooth side, rice paper has a smooth side and a rough side. So you can decide which one you prefer painting on. But if you've been painting on the smooth side, which is what I recommend for when you start out with this style of painting, then you're going to want to transition to a watercolor paper, which is a hot press paper. And that means that this watercolor paper, this is the Fabriano Studio watercolor paper, and it's hot press, so it has a smooth surface on it. And this is what I'm going to show you today, how to do an artwork on hot press paper, so you can get comfortable, get familiar with that. And if you're working on that rice paper, before you move over to your um, watercolor paper, the thicker papers, you're going to want to work on top of a piece of felt. So this is just, craft felt. And what I do with the craft felt is I lay it on the table, and then I use by the black or gray, and then I put my um, rice paper on top of it. That way, if I have a lot of water in my brush as I'm working, it's fine. It's fine. If this gets black ink on it, you are not even going to notice it. Don't worry. Do not worry. Sometimes, if I'm really getting crazy with different colors of ink and stuff, I will double. So I'll have two of these down underneath, just to be sure that if something's going to soak through the one felt, it gets caught with the second felt. So, but that's something that is going to be very handy and help you a lot with that. On my website, on under the events tab, um, where I list what the workshops are going to be that I'm offering, I also often will put reference photos. Not always, but if there's a reference photo, I like to pop it in there. So check day of or the day before the events tab on my website, and you may find a reference photo for the workshop if you want to follow along. So this is the photo that I took of a, what's it called? Amaryllis lily that's across the street from me at one of my neighbors' houses. It's so pretty. It's like a trumpet lily. And so this is one of the flowers we're going to paint with the Japanese watercolors today. I thought that I would show you one of my photographs, and that photograph is available under the events tab. And when I write the article for this workshop on my website, I will include these reference photos for you as well if you want to go back and look at the article or share the article with your friends, and they'll have a reference photo that they can download. So that's what we're going to work from today for tonight's workshop. Now, you know that I love books, and I have a million art books. Hey there, we have some folks from the UK and from Brazil. Woohoo! Welcome in from all over the world. Love that. Thanks for joining. And so this is the book that we're going to base this workshop on. Although I have many Sumi-e books, which is a form of Japanese watercolor, or Asian watercolors. Okay, Sumi-e is actually a Japanese word, but this is Chinese brush painting right here, this book. And this is a Walter Foster book. So Walter Foster is a company that has been around, geez, I think since the 30s, 40s. Let's see. It says more than 80 years ago. So yeah, this book is from 2003, originally written in 1991. This particular Walter Foster book, but Walter Foster, Foster, has excellent, small, see how it's not daunting? It's not a daunting book. It's a small book, and they are very good instruction. They have cartooning books. They have just all like for everything that you would maybe want to learn how to do. Dragon drawing books, everything. Okay, but that is I'm going to show you right here. It says Walter Foster. Okay, and there will be a link to this book or maybe a newer version of it in the description of the YouTube video. Later tonight or tomorrow, I'll go and put that in there. And I love this book because it's beginner friendly and it shows you the basics of what you need. You see your watercolor paints or your watercolor pans, the brushes, the brush rest, the ink, a little water container of some sort, that kind of thing. So they tell you all the elements you're going to need. And then I like the way the book tells you the strokes, how to hold the brush and how to move your hand, because painting with Asian brushes is different than painting with, say, the normal Princeton watercolor brushes that I normally use. These are a lot different. Actually, I have huge Chinese brushes. This is a big one, big goat hair brush right here. And this is not the biggest one that I have. I have even bigger ones for painting on larger pieces of paper, but they are a different style of brush. And that's why I wanted to share with you tonight how to work with the Asian brushes. And it gives you good tips inside the book right here. And then we're going to start out with the typical, which is bamboo. So I'll show you some of the strokes that you can use to create bamboo. Now, this is something that I really enjoy is doing the orchids. These are so simple. And the nice thing is on the previous page, they show you exactly what to do. So I can't recommend this book enough. Chinese Brush Painting by Lucy Wang. Lucy, Wang. And superb book. So I'm gonna show you the instructions, for instance, for doing the bamboo, and we're gonna do some together when it goes over top of the table. Let me see if there's anything else I wanna share with you. Yes. Now, sometimes I will look online for characters because the first thing the book shows you is how to make certain characters. And this was my practice sheet on the rice paper of doing various characters, various strokes here. These are warm-up strokes, following along with the book, and then some characters, which are Chinese characters from the book. Now, I look online, and you can find online Chinese, here, these are the elements of Chinese characters right here. So if you're interested in doing Chinese or Japanese calligraphy, you can find reference material like this out on the internet, and it will show you, for instance, Ren. So this character right here is Ren, and that means people right there. And yes, when I was a kid and we lived overseas, I spoke Chinese and I spoke Korean when we lived in those different countries. My father was an Asian linguist, so he spoke Vietnamese, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean, and worked for the U.S. military, as you can imagine, with those skills, right? So I print off materials like that, and then I use them to help me when I'm getting ready to do calligraphy, character work. And then there are other, like this is Chinese vocabulary that I just found in a store. What was it? It was Ace Educational Store, and they had this, which was all about Chinese also. And so I can find inside here the meanings and the characters. If I wanted to write a poem or something, I may be able to put together the poem with some of the words that are in here. So I just wanted to make you aware that you can find reference materials like that either online or sometimes in the store. And maybe it's another language that you want to play with in terms of learning how to uh, work with it. What are some other interesting languages over in the Middle East? Some of the writing is just so beautiful. And same thing, they write beautiful poems. And so this, what I'm going to show you tonight will translate into also being able to script other different kinds of languages as well. So it's going to be so much fun. Let's go ahead then. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else I need to share with you before we go over top of the table. Oh, yeah, let's talk just a little bit more about brushes before we go over top of the table. Uh, there are the Chinese brushes generally are goat's hair. So do you see this white hair right here? That's a goat hair brush. And then this is a wolf hair brush. So this kind of reddish brown looking is a wolf hair brush. And that's pretty much what I have is the wolf hair and that. There's this interesting brush that I have. This one, you can see I left it in the water, right? No worries. I put it in water. Look, I'll just dip it in water and then you'll see it'll just come back to, it'll come back to a point like that. It's a little bit bent, but it's still good. And this is actually a combination of um, goat hair in the middle and wolf's hair on the outside. So you can find sometimes the brushes in combination of various hairs. And when you buy an Asian brush, it's going to start out looking like this, right? It's going to look super stiff. It has starch in it. And so you can just take it and swish it around and push it in the water in the bottom of your water container, and that will soften it. After it's been softened, when they dry, then they're going to look either like this, which this one is, this looks like combination hair too. Yeah, this is goat hair on the outside and another hair on the inside. And then, but oftentimes they just look fluffy like this. And you're like, how the heck am I going to do that fine work with a brush that looks like that? But trust me, I'm going to dip it in water right now. And then you'll see I've just dipped it in water. And then I love these little Faber-Castell collapsible water containers because of the tulip tip. So you can put your brushes on them like that. But they're also great for when you want to rub the bristles on the edge of it. And you see how it comes to a tip like that? Isn't that amazing? Oh, so beautiful. I love when brushes have a nice tip like that because it just gives you nice belly. That's this part of the brush and then the tip of the brush. So I like it when it has a fat belly and a nice tip to it right there. Oh, fabulous. Now those are regular brushes, okay? Regular Chinese brushes. And then there are practice brushes. And I'm going to show you why they're practice brushes in a little bit. But there is a chamber on this brush that can hold water in it. So if you're familiar with regular water brushes that normally will have a plastic, they have plastic hairs to them. Let me see if I have one here. I know I have them here, but I'm just not sure if I have an empty one here. Okay, here's one. So this is typically what you get when you buy a water brush, right? And you put water in here. They're perfect for traveling with. And then you have nylon up here. That's a normal watercolor travel brush where you can put water in the barrel and just squeeze it a little bit and be able to paint watercolor on the go. Well, this is more for studio practice and you can suck up water into here. I'm going to show you how to do that when we go over top of the table. But instead of having a plastic or nylon top to it, you are getting the real thing, the hair top to it. Way better. Now, this is not as compact. It doesn't like fold into itself or anything. So it's a full size brush. You would not necessarily be traveling with a full size brush like that. That's another reason why these are great. You can separate these generally like this, and without water in it, you can travel with it like that. So it breaks down a lot more, right? But it has the nylon hair. So I recommend if you're in your studio, but you want a water brush, oh my gosh, these Chinese water brushes are amazing. I'll show you how to use it shortly. Now, the brushes I've been showing you have long tips to them, but Chinese brushes come in all different sizes of the tops. So some of them are shorter, like this is a shorter one. And actually, I have some even much shorter. See how it's bushy right now, but when I put water and ink on it, it'll just whoop, go like that. But you can see this is a tiny one, a little one. So of course they come from super huge like this down to the really small ones, depending on how big a space you have to paint with. These are the ones that I tend to like the most, which are this size and in the different hair like that. So I'll usually have a wolf hair and a goat's hair. And why do I have the different hairs? Wolf hair is a little stiffer and goat hair is a little more flexible. So it depends on what kind of stroke work you're doing, whether you want the wolf hair or the goat's hair. And that's why they have, and then the combinations of them. Oh, look, I actually have here a Yasutomo. This is a Yasutomo bamboo handle. And see, it's a small tip brush, but it's good for doing details with that one. All right, let's go over top of the table and then we can really get started with the painting part of the show. Okay, so what do I have here behind me? I'm going to put my samples here. These are some samples that we're going to work through. And ta-da, that's one of the pieces that I did for the show. But let's set all that aside. This is a beautiful thick piece of felt that I found at a craft store. This other black one was a thin piece of felt. And when I found the thick one, I was like, oh yeah, baby, that's awesome. I love that thick felt. So we're gonna work on the thick gray felt today. This is called magic paper. And what it is paper that you can put water on and then it dries. Oh, it's so nice because it's perfect for practicing working with your Chinese brushes. And there are three sheets here. One has stroke practice, the other one has character practice, and the third one is blank. So Chinese characters in particular for the stroke work, the Chinese characters, generally you try to keep them within a square. It doesn't always work, but in general, you're trying to keep your characters somewhat square. It's like when you're printing in English, right? So you want some uniformity in your letters. And this is a practice sheet that can help you with that. And it's perfect for warm up. This brush that I just told you about that has the water chamber in it right there, there is a little piston here that you push down and pull up by turning the back end. So I have a glass of water here. Actually, let me move this out of the way to start. I don't want to spill a bunch of water on it. So I'm going to take this. Right now, the piston is up because I had put water in it. So right now, I'm going to twist this to get the piston to go down. There it goes. So now the piston is all the way down here. Can you see that? And I'm going to dip the head of this into the water just about to where that piston is. And then I'm going to twist the piston and it should begin to pull water in. It doesn't fill the whole thing, but it will put water inside it. So you see where there's water inside there? This is awesome because it just makes it so much easier. You don't have to keep dipping back into your water when you're practicing. Now, I have not ever tried these putting ink in them. I have no idea whether they'll work with ink in them or not. I always just use them for practice and use a regular brush for when I'm actually doing the work. But let me set the water aside here and come back to our magic mats. And they are perfect for practicing, and not just for practicing Chinese calligraphy, but for practicing any sort of writing. And I'm going to show you that in a little bit. So, in particular, Asian characters have a certain way that they're built. So for instance, you can see little arrows here. This one shows an arrow down and a flip back up. Let me bring that a little closer so you can see it. So do you see that? How it tells you what to do? For instance, over here, you can see little arrows that tell you how to move your brush. Okay, these are phenomenal for starting out learning how to work with Chinese brushes. And like I said, you can use Chinese brushes for your regular watercolors anytime. I love using Chinese brushes to paint with. So this one happens to have a water reservoir, which means you have to dip less into your water, which is awesome. So let's start out. How do you hold a Chinese brush? So the book that I just showed you, where did I put it? This one, the Chinese Brush Book by Walter Foster, tells you to hold it like this. So your thumb and your two fingers, okay, your middle finger and your pointer finger there, and then rest it on your other two fingers on the other side like that. That's how they show you how to use it. Now, I learned in school when I lived in Taiwan, and we didn't do that. We put the thumb on one side and all of our fingers on the other side. I like knowing that there are other ways to do this so that you can choose what it is that you want to do. You can try it. Often I will put my pinky in and just have these three fingers here. So I want you to realize that you can try it, and you can try holding the brush in different ways in order to get different results. Okay. And generally, when you hold a Chinese brush, there are two holds. One is up and down. So I'm just holding the brush like this, but up and down. And then one is holding it on its side like this. So for these strokes that we're going to be doing here, we're going to push it down and then bring it around. So I'm doing more of a hold up and down, and I'm following along with the little marks that are on there. And it's just telling me exactly what to do. Now, the interesting thing is this flip of the wrist in order to get this tail, that's something that you'll learn as you work with Chinese brushes. And that's why I like this particular kind of tip on my Chinese brush, because then I can get it to flip the way that I want it to and make it look the way it's supposed to look. Here again, up and down, and I'm following along with the little loops right here. Now, I've done this since I was a kid, and I'm old. So I know that I make it look easy. I just encourage you to be patient with yourself. I've been doing this since I was in, uh, I'd say, high school, maybe 12 years old. I've had a Chinese brush in my hand. So if you get a mat and then you say, wow, mine doesn't look like hers, watch more videos and follow along, or take courses and watch what they do with the movement of the hand and the angle of the brush and the type of tip that they have on it. Okay. Also, different brushes will give you different um, fatness, fat, thin, that kind of thing. So, for instance, this is my favorite one for doing this kind of warm up practice. And you notice these are already, this is called magic paper because you're just using water and then the water evaporates and you have a clean slate to start over again. Now let's use this other brush, which you can see is shorter and a little fatter in here. Just water. That's the beautiful thing. When you're practicing with these, it's just water. Now, of course, I'll have to go and put more water on my brush more regularly because I don't have a reservoir on this one. But again, I'm holding it here. It gives me a lot different it's a lot different because the tip is shorter and the belly of the brush is fatter. So it doesn't stay. You see how it's crushing down and it doesn't stay with that nice tip, which is good for different kinds of movements, but it's going to give you thick, thick, thick instead of your more thin um, type of movements, mark making. Now, let me see if there's another one. Now, let's take just the regular watercolor brush that I'm used to working with. This is the Princeton Velvet Touch Long Round size 10. So you see how it kind of comes to a point here. Let's just put water on it, but I'm going to hold it like I would hold a Chinese brush instead of holding it like I would brush normally with my watercolors. So let's hold it like a Chinese brush. And what we're getting is a lot of breaking apart of the end. So you see how it's not, we're getting feathering. You see the feathering there? And we don't want the feathering, we want solid movements like there. You may find after trying the Chinese brushes that you actually prefer the Chinese brushes over the watercolor brushes, even for doing your regular watercolor. That's why I wanted to introduce this to you. So this is practicing mark making for the elements of making Chinese characters. The next thing is actual Chinese characters that you can try using those same marks. So let's use the brush that already has water in it. And what we have here is the numbers for one set. It's 1、2、3、4、5、6、7、8、9、10. That's 1 through 10. Of course, that's the first thing you learn, right, as a kid. So here I'm going to hold the brush like I was learning how to do in the previous sheet. And then this is what they call a bone stroke. And it's push down, pull across, and flip back. And you'll have, it looks like a bone. You know how a bone has a knob at one end and a knob at the other end? So when you do this and you bring it over, you're coming back on yourself so that you get a little knob right there. Okay. Now, the only thing I find I have to do with this is I have to straighten the tip periodically. So we've got a small bone and a big bone. So that's E, that's number one, number two. And then here we're going to do san. So san is just 3 lines, the same sort of shape. This is su, which is 4. So let's go ahead and straighten that back out. And what we're doing here is creating a box. And then this one and that one. So you can follow along. This is my favorite character. This is the character Jung, Jung, and it's in the center, and which is appropriate because Jung means center. And China is called Zhongguo, and that means middle country or center country. And that's like kind of the center of the world. And I love this character because it's a box. Oops, let's get some of that water down in there. So I'm going to twist this to create some pressure and push some of the water down into the tip, right? Oh, love that. And then I'm going to do my box and then, oh, like that. So that is Zhong, and Guo, which is country, is like a really complicated one that I'm not going to do right now for you, but this is perfect. Even if you don't want to do Chinese characters, it's still good to practice with these brushes on the characters so that you get familiar with how to hold the brush and how to get the mark that you're looking for. Now, let's go to the next sheet, which is, there's nothing on here. So there are little blocks, so you can try to keep your, whatever you're doing inside the block, and it gives you those grid lines. So these are awesome for playing with. Now I know for Jung has a long tail, so I have to actually start Jung a little higher than the center, and then I can do my tail. And I'm trying to keep it somewhat in the block right there. This is a heart. So like that. And that's That's what I would consider block lettering. But hey, you can use this for any type of lettering. So I could write words on here. Let's do this. For instance, if I'm learning brush calligraphy, I can do this because you're learning to work with downward pressure, upward pressure, right? And it is an excellent way to learn to write with a brush. And then when you put your watercolor or you put your ink on the brush, you'll have practiced or warmed up on this magic paper, and you can already see that it is evaporating. It's evaporating away. Phenomenal. Love these. Now there's one more type of magic paper that I'm going to show you, which is on a roll. So a lot of artwork from a lot of Asian artwork comes on what are called scrolls, a roll like this. And this is magic paper. So I'm going to put the other end in my lap because it's a nice long scroll. So when you're practicing Chinese painting or Chinese calligraphy or any kind of calligraphy, if it's going to be going up and down, because Chinese calligraphy goes up and down, then I have this beautiful scroll of magic paper. Now I'm going to put these weights, paper weights up here to hold it in place. And then here again is my water brush. Let me make sure that I'm turning it a little bit to force a little bit of the water through there. Yep. And so the same thing here. I can either do Chinese characters, I can do flowers, I can do words, right? If what your objective is to learn how to, if it's to learn how to do anything, do any kind of writing, drawing, you could be doing just drawings, anything like that. This magic paper will allow you to do it, and then it just evaporates, which is awesome. Now let's do a few of the things that we're going to need, for instance, for the bamboo. So I'm just turning this a little bit so that I can get more water down into the, yep, nice and wet there in the brush. And then let's look at the bamboo that we have here. So bamboo, I love the bamboo stalk. There's a trick to doing the bamboo stalk. And the trick is when you're gonna, remember I said you do your brush up and down, and then there's another time when you do your brush sideways. So when you're doing bamboo, you're creating this part of the bamboo sideways. So you're going to go on your side. I'm still holding my brush like this, the Chinese way, and I'm going to bring it up, and then I'm doing a little shuffle, and then bring it up, and then I'm doing a little shuffle, bring it up, I'm doing a little. So that gives me the stalk of the bamboo right there. Beautiful thing is if I'm using this magic paper, it doesn't matter if I mess up. I can practice it over and over and over again, right? So let's do a thin one right here. So that means I'm holding it at a different angle. And this will help you to learn how, your pressure, right? How much pressure you need to use in order to get the amount of ink out that you want to get out. Fabulous. Now, on the branches, on these little, at these little knobs of the bamboo, there are little tiny branches that come off like this. And then on the ends of these little branches here, there are leaves. Now the leaves are tricky, and it really takes you having the right brush to make the leaves. It really does, because this brush that's thin at the top and bulky down here, it's a shorter hairs. I don't like the leaf that this one gives me, but I'll show you right here. It's a beautiful thing that I can work on this magic. See, the word hello is already starting to go away. So I'm going to hold this like I hold a Chinese brush. And to do the bamboo, you're going to come down and then you lift up. So that is a piece of bamboo. That's a bamboo leaf. So it's okay. But what happens is as this becomes more bent, it it doesn't hold its shape. Where if you have a long skinny one like this, it does a better job of holding its shape. So we're going to do a bamboo. Oh, look, I'm losing it. Ah, it started to go away. There we go. So there are the branches, and now I'm going to do. So if you have a nice tip like this and it's long, so it's thin for a long way here, it's easier to do your little bamboo leaves with this kind of brush than a brush that's shorter. Okay, fabulous. So much easier like this. And now I'm just not, the ones that are a little bit thinner, I'm just not using as much pressure. All right, because often you'll have the ones that are closer to you are going to be bigger, and the ones that are further away from you are going to be smaller. Plus, the ones further away from you often will not be as dark, they'll be lighter. And we'll get into that when we actually do use the ink in just a moment. Okay, so let me see. There's another thing, a couple of things that I want to show you here. And that is, I think these little butterflies and bees are so cute. So I'm going to show you how to do them on here. See in the book here, here's a cute little Siamese cat, but they're showing you how to do a butterfly. So we're going to do a butterfly right here. I'm going to do this and then another stroke. So it's all about those strokes and the direction of the strokes. And they give you little arrows. See the little arrows right there? So we'll do that. And then we just do this. And then here, we're going to put a couple of eyes and woo. And then we're going to build the body down here. And then we're going to do little legs. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. So that's how you can do a butterfly. Quick and easy. I love how they show you how to do it right here. Fantastic. The steps that they break down for you are so nice in the book. And then another thing that you can do is a bee. I love the little bee. This is the picture that I gave you is an amaryllis that I from my neighbor's house that I printed that I took a picture of for you. Here, see these little bees? Oh my gosh, they're so cute. And again, they give you the instructions in the book. So to create a bee, I'm going to create a little bee here. So we're getting the bee body. And then we're going to do the bee wings. There we go. And then we're going to have little eyes, right? We have little eyes for the bee and little antenna for the bee, little feet here. And then down here we have longer feet. And it's so cute. So cute. We're just breaking it down by the steps. And that's the beautiful thing about working with something like this, where you don't have to worry. It's just going to fade away for you. And you can just focus on how to hold your brush and getting the strokes that you need to get. For instance, here, there's the Jung character, right? Here's Ren, which is people. But I can practice my stroke work or practice writing words on this magic paper and use this pen, this, they actually call them pens. The Chinese will call this a calligraphy pen, but you can get the ones with the water that you can put in there, and these are fabulous. But let's now go to the next step is going to rice paper before we go to watercolor paper. So I'm just going to roll this up to a point. I'm going to leave it to dry and then I'll continue rolling it up. But let's just put that off to the side. I don't have one of these available in my whatnot shop, but if you go to my website and you go to supply links, you'll be able to find it because I don't stock the roll. I just stock the 3 sheets. All right. So now let's go to rice paper. I have to find where I put it. So this is the sketch paper from Yasutomo. Let's do this. I'm going to pull a sheet out. If I try using ink on this sheet, it is going to go through to the next sheet because rice paper is quite um, light. And I had mentioned earlier that rice paper has a smooth side. So here's a very smooth side right here and a rough side right here. So I like to paint on the smooth side, and then after the item is painted, if I like what I made and I want to mount it, I can mount the rice paper onto another kind of paper, a heavier paper. So this is actually rice paper. I made the painting and I'm like, oh, that's cute. So then you can see here, there's rice paper, and I mounted the rice paper onto a heavier sheet of bamboo paper. Okay, so we'll talk about that later, but I just wanted to show you that the rice paper is kind of flimsy and you want to mount it onto a backing in order to get it smooth so that you can put it into a mat and into a frame. You don't have to do that. You can just put it onto an acid-free backing board. You can put some tape on here and then lay your mat over top of it. And that's another way that you can mat it. But I like to put it on, I like to attach it to a sturdier piece of paper first. So I'm going to work on the smooth. Oh, and that's why I was mentioning that I work on the smooth side, because when I mount it onto the other paper, I like to have the rough side down so it attaches better to the surface I'm adding it to. Okay. But when you're learning, try both sides because you may like the results that you get with the rough side better. And it's all good. It is all good. All right. So we're going to go back to the beginning here where they just show you the basic movements, the basic strokes. But of course, before we can do that, we need some ink, right? So there are, let me get one of these little containers. So this is the ink. Oh, there's more paint in there. Let me hold on a second. Let's get one that's somewhat clean. So I'm just going to shake this up. This is the Sumi-e ink that you can buy already made up like that. Beautiful black ink. Now, often what I'll do is take some of this ink and put it in another container with some water. So I use, this is traditional for a water dropper, a little something like this or ceramic. And so that you can pour little bits of water. This is actually another one that I have here. And you can, it doesn't pour as well as the old ones, but that's the concept behind that, is that you're putting water in there. And then I'm going to grab some of this ink. No, you know what? I'll just pour a little bit of it from here. The reason for that is I'm trying to make a gray and a black. Oh, come on, just a little bit. Hey. Okay, so I want a gray and a black when I'm working with just black. So there's a lot more water in that, so that I can try to get something that's more gray than something that's dark, dark, dark black. So I want a black one and I want a gray one. Now I'm going to put this back on that, on here, right? Yay. Thank you, Faber-Castell. Okay, so that's pouring it right from the bottle. Now, I like to, sometimes it's easier to mix a gray using this ink, using the ink block. So there's a little bit of water in here. If you look at this, it's indented right here. So I'm gonna put a little bit of water. The purpose of that is to pour a little bit of water into the indent. And then you'll see here, both ends of this one has been used to get the ink out of it. So I'm going to grab a little bit of water and then I'm going to do this. Let me see, is that shaking you? Is that shaking the image, y'all? I hope it's not. This way I can control how much ink I've put out there to, again, get um, the different thicknesses. So let's use a different brush. Let me get this one wet right here. I always have a paper towel in my hand when I'm working with watercolors. So let's see if I pick some of this up. It's not as dark. It's not as black. It's a little more gray. If I pick up what came right out of the bottle, it's darker. It's more black. So oftentimes I like to use this to create my grays. If I wanted to, I could just sit here and actually keep going and create a dark black like that. And of course, these stay dry. They're super easy to travel with. This is actually a plastic travel stone. So where these other travel stones that I have, I mean, these other small stones I have are super heavy because they're shale. This is super light because it's plastic, but it still does the trick when I want to create ink on the fly. So this would be a good setup if you were going to travel to take your solid ink and this, and then you're not traveling with the liquid. Okay, so there's a travel hint for you. And then usually I'll leave this out to dry and then I'll put it back inside its little protector box right there. Let me show you that other one that I talked about earlier, which was the color. So you don't have to just do it with black. You can get these bars in all different kind of colors. And then this, like I said, is a very old one, very, very old. And it's ink as well. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put some water in here. And then you go to grinding. You see that yellow that's coming up? Isn't that cool? How cool is that? Because it doesn't look yellow here. But when I do this in the grindstone, I get yellow. Awesome. There you go. See the end of it? Who'd have thunk, right? That is so cool. Okay. And then, of course, I can take that color. Remember how I said this one has a little hole right here? I can take that color and I can pour it. Well, I'll just pour it right into there. So now I've got yellow in here, yellow ink. So if you were grinding multiple colors, you could use something like this to grind your different colors. The other thing you can do with that is you can put water in there and have it go into the well as well. Isn't that fun? That is so much fun. Okay, so now we have yellow watercolor paint and it came from this funky stick right here. Weird, right? But that's like ancient. This is the ancient technique of creating your inks for doing your paintings. All right, I'm going to put this back in a dry one. Oh, look at that pigment, it's so beautiful. Okay, put that back there to dry. And normally I would clean this out when I'm done so I can use it for whatever color I want the next time. Right? See all that color on there? Ooh, amazing, amazing. Nice. Okay, that's going away. Now you'll notice here, this is starting to dry, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because if my brush is wet and I come with a wet brush on top of here, boom, there's my ink right there. So it's okay if it dries. That's not going to hurt anything. I actually want more water there. I want to draw more water because I want it to be more gray than black. There we go. Now I've got my grays. Now, why is it important to have gray? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. So first of all, let's just use the black right here. Now I'm working with the Yasutomo smaller brush just to show you, okay? The characters, learning how to do the characters. I like to get a point, and then I'm just looking here at the characters, which look very similar, don't they, to that practice sheet? So I'm just gonna do these few along the top here. And the first one, holding it like a Chinese brush up and down, push over, back a little bit. You see the bone? You see why they call it a bone stroke? Because doesn't that look like a bone? That's E, or the number one. Of course, if I wanted to make it the number two, I would do a small one, and there's two, and then if I wanted to do sun, I would do that. So that's a series of bone strokes, right? E or sun, that's 1, 2, 3. Or ichi ni, I think it's ichi ni san chi for Japanese, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, I studied Chinese. I didn't study Japanese. Um, so that's the bone stroke and combinations of the bone stroke. And then let's go do the down stroke, vertical, what they call the vertical bone stroke. So we're going to go here, down, and then you're flipping it back up at the end. You're not going to see it like that. It's going to be more like, okay, like that. So you are lifting your brush, and it leaves sort of a little tail, but not a discernible tail. Okay, then we're going to do the crook like this. So this is all getting your wrist and your arm ready for doing flowers and things. Okay, so it's a great way to warm up with the brush. So there's the downstroke with the little tail. That's called a hook. And then let's do the short down, straight down, over and up. So you see the little, you see the little tail? That's why I love the brushes that have that beautiful point like that. Oh, so nice, so nice. And then you have just a plain downstroke. You have one that goes off and leaves you a thin tail. So these are the kind of strokes that you can play with these Chinese brushes and compare them to the book so that you can, but the beautiful thing about um, different books and those other magic water pages that I showed you is that they show you the direction. So you start up here, you come down, there's a little arrow here. It shows you exactly what order to do that in. And then what a good one looks like. So you can practice, 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 practice to get good strokes. Now here they're showing you some different characters that you can do with it. So you get a feel for if you wanted to do character work like that. I've actually done, I showed you earlier, a bunch of character work right here, but that's not the subject of tonight's workshop. And the cool thing is when you do these practice sheets, this is all mark making that you can tear up because this is rice paper, so it's thin. You can tear it up and use it in your collage artworks, which is what I do. I don't throw these away. I fill the whole thing. So I'll use a small brush and I'll come in here and I'll just do small characters and I'll play around, right? I might do squiggles to see how the brush does that. I might do O's to see how I can get O's very organic looking, right? And I'll fill the whole page with all different, my practice and all different kinds of marks. And then that becomes a collage sheet that I can tear up and use in my artwork. So that it doesn't go to waste. It never goes to waste, all of these practice sheets. Now I wanted to show you, see the gray? Here, now that it's dry, this is more gray, this is more black. That was these two here, where I put more water in this one and no water in this one, right? And these were the grays that I got here from the stick. So let's do some bamboo playing with that. I'm going to grab another sheet of sketch paper. There we go. So this is how you do bamboo. And thank you for spending your Sunday evening with me. I realize people are going to pop in and pop out of the show. So I hope you enjoy it. When I save it to YouTube, in the comments on YouTube, I will go and add chapters. So if there's a particular, if you want to rewatch the bamboo part, you can go back and just watch that part, because there'll be you can click on it in YouTube and it'll take you right to that section. Okay. So those are called chapters. Now I'm going to take my little paper weights here, and I'm going to hold my paper down like that. And oh, so nice. And then let's take the, okay, I don't want that one. I want this one. Ooh, do I want that one? I don't know. It's so hard to decide. There's so many beautiful brushes, y'all. Okay, so I start by getting it wet. That was dry, right? That one was dry. So I get it wet to start with. There's no water in this one, okay? This is just the brush. It's a little bit shorter than, you can see already this one's starting to dry. It was wet earlier, and now it's getting fluffy on the end, but it'll go like that. This one's a little bit, if you look, it's just a little bit shorter than this one. Actually, I really like this one. Let's go back to this one right here. Paper towel. So you don't want it sopping wet. You want to have water in there so it holds the brush together and you have a nice tip, but you don't want it sopping wet, because otherwise it will spread too much when you put the color onto your paper. So we're going to start with the gray, because the gray is what's in the background and then the dark is in the foreground. So we want to start with gray bamboo. And yeah, so we're going to do the same thing. You see here where they're talking about the value scale, super light all the way down to black. And so when you're doing multiples of the bamboo, you want to start with the light in the background and then work toward the darker ones. So let's pick this up, which has what? Water in it. So it's more gray than it is black. And it dried looking more gray. So there it is in the brush. I'm always putting my brush on the edge of whatever I have it in, because I want that tip when I'm working, especially when I'm working with bamboo. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to hold it on its side, and I'm bearing in mind these are the bamboos in the background. So I'm going to be putting a main bamboo in the foreground. So I want to be up here somewhere, and I'm working on the side, and I'm just using the tip area because I want it to be thin. See how I'm going, and then I'm stopping just a little bit. When this dries, it'll be a little bit more light, okay? And then I'm gonna come up here. I'm gonna hold it straight up and down because I wanna get these little branches, right? And these little branches are where I'm going to put my leaves off of. Now, the interesting thing about bamboo is that this little area where each section is, one of them will put a shoot off in one direction. The next one will put a shoot off in another direction or a different direction. So now I'm just trying to use the end of it like that. And then here is going to be another one like that. And then here, another one like that. You know, in the beginning, you don't have to be perfect. Don't worry about it. Thank you very much. Oscar Art says, amazing. So the objective is to work and work and work until we can make ours look more like these, right? But don't be hard on yourself. Just have fun. This is rice paper, super cheap. Okay. These brushes, also not expensive, but you can have such a blast with them. Okay, so we're going to do smaller. I'm actually going to grab a little bit of water here because I want it to be a little bit lighter. Now on the side here, I don't know if you can see, but this is lighter. It's not black, it's gray right there because I added a little bit of water. And then I'm going to make my small. So I push down. Ooh, there you go. The objective is to get that little tip at the end, which I don't always do, but that's why I want a brush that has a really nice tip to it. So we've got 3 there. Now what I'm noticing is it's soaking into the paper because there's a lot of water here. So if it's soaking in and spreading too much for you, you need to tap it on a paper towel. And by tapping it on a paper towel, you can take some of that moisture out and prevent some of that spreading. So here we go. And then, so the flip of the wrist is really important in order to get the skinny tips to those leaves. But like I said, don't beat yourself up, just have fun, practice, play. It takes many years to get good at doing this. So do not be hard on yourself, please. Just look at your reference. So here I'll show you the reference again. Look at your reference. It looks so simple, doesn't it? But it's not. Oh my gosh. Just takes practice. It takes practice to work with the different shapes, the different pressures, your various brushes in order to get different leaves. Now, each artist also has a different pressure that they put when they're doing their work. So yours may look completely different from mine. Ah, Oscar Art said, I actually want to learn how to do bamboo like this. Yeah, Oscar, you weren't here earlier, but these brushes, the Asian brushes, are the trick. They are the trick to getting the bamboo to look right. You need the right brushes. So experiment with lots of the Asian brushes. What I'm using is a brush that has goat hair. The white brushes like this are goat hair. And so they're flexible. They're quite flexible. And notice how long the top is and how skinny the tip is here. So this is the style of brush that I like the best for doing bamboo myself. But you'll see that it works very well for just all different kinds of the Asian, whoop, all different kinds of Asian painting that we're going to be getting into a little bit later. Okay, so there is something that's very light that's in the background. Let me try to add a little more water here and get just a little more ink because it's not as gray as I would like. Actually, I can see I'm going to have to go to here. Remember, there's water down in here because there's a little dip. So I'm going to grab more water, come up here and see if I can get a lighter. How do I test if it's lighter? I use my paper towel. So see there, I've got a nice gray going. Okay. So now I'm going to put another one um, over here somewhere because I'm going to put my main one right here. Okay. I'm sort of planning it in my mind. So I'm going to put another one over here. And since I'm doing the bamboo stalk, I have to hold it on its side. And I'm using more of the tip because I don't want it to go. It's okay that like half of it is missing, right? Do you see that? I could come in here and try to rebuild it, but just go with it. One of the things about Asian painting is learning to just let go and work with what's in front of you. And so the interesting thing is this is very close to my body. And so as I was doing it, I was lifted up further than I would normally be. And so we've got some blank space here, but that's okay. It's cool. I could actually come in and like do something like this. And then that gives you like a white what looks like a white highlight on there, right? Something fun. So now I'm dipping back because I want to get the tip stiff. Okay, so I want to put a little bit here, and let's put some leaves in here. Ah, it's working, it's working. It's always for me. I'm like, am I going to get the leaves right? But definitely having the right brush helps a lot to getting the right leaves. But it's press, drag, and lift. Press, drag, and lift, right? So I put them out this way. Now this side, I'm going to do this way. I know it's kind of going toward the edge of the paper, but it's okay. And then there we go. And there's another little crook right here. So I could do this right here. You see when I stop, okay, I want to bring this up. When I draw the line and then I stop for just a quarter of a second, you see how it makes a little knob on the end there? Love that. Love that. Love that. And you'll notice that when you look in the book and you see they call these deer's horns, but can you see the little knob at the end? That's because you went up and you delayed for just that teeny tiny little bit, and it created a little knob at the end. What? Okay. This is going too much like this for me, so I will just do this and straighten that tip out. And let's see. So we're going to do a little bit more here. But you're definitely going to get to where you get a feel for swiping, swipe. Okay, there we go. Now, there was a little too much water here at this point. Can you see where it's all diffused right there? And so water control is important, like how much water, how much ink. It just takes years of practice. Years and years and years of practice. But the nice thing is these two are gray. Sometimes I'll even come in with a color, and I'll put a color in the background as well. Let's do that with a different brush. How about I use this one right here, a little shorter. Let's get it wet. And then I'm tapping because I don't want to have too much water in there. Let's take this yellow and see what happens when I put a yellow one in the background. What the heck? Why not? I often will put green ones or red ones or whatever ink or color I happen to have. So let's do this one right here. I'm delaying and I'm getting those little knots, right? And then I'll do this one. All the same movement, right? Just a different color. And then here, why not? And I'm assuming this one's kind of further away, so it's going to be a little darker. I mean, a little lighter. And here, we'll have some more. Right here. Why not? Bring it way up here, just for the heck of it. But definitely, I'm putting it down, lifting up, putting it down, lifting up. Okay. And I can see I'm starting to run out of the yellow ink. It's actually drying very light, which is great. Love it. It's fine. It's fine. Let's run this over here a little bit more. So it's right. We get to play. Just give it a little different interest. But yeah, I love using different colors when I'm doing my bamboo. And generally, I put the colors in the background just for to add some interest. Now, before I clean this brush out, I'm going to get a lot of the pigment out of it like this. Just dip it a little bit, get more pigment out of it. I try to get as much pigment out of it as I can before I get too much pigment in the water. Let's just do this now. Okay, there we go. So now that's ready for when I decide I want another color. Now I've got my brushes sitting over here on a wooden brush rest. So I do have these linked. I'll put the link to these at the end of the, when I save the video and I go back and I add the links into it, I'll be putting this and some of the brushes, links to some of the brushes. Okay, so now I want to work with a bigger brush, a brush that has a bigger head to it. That's this one right here, because I'm going to go fully black, right? So this was ink directly out of the liquid container. And so I'm pulling straight from that black ink. And that's going to be the bamboo that's in the foreground, right? And I don't want too much wetness in my brush because I don't want it to spread too much. And so let's start down here on the side. Nice. So now we've got the big one in the front. And see, this is called dry brush right here, where it's not filled with the ink. And so that's because I was using it on the side and the brush was somewhat dry when I started with it. And I like that. I like that imperfection. It's the perfection and the imperfection, right? So now let's do our little, uh, where do I want to do it? I'm going to do it here. And then I'm going to do it over here. Right. So this is where I'm going to do my, and then there's going to be some coming up from back here, from the knot down below here. Let's do this up just a little bit more. All right. So now we've built our, let me bring it up closer. We've built the bamboo base. We've got our little branches coming off, what they call the deer horns. And then we're going to put the leaves over here. And these are going to be the darker leaves. So now I've got plenty of the blackest black ink on here. And I can start making bigger. Oh, okay, hold on. Constantly getting the shape right before I do the leaves, right? Generally, they grow in clumps of 3. That's why I put 3 here. But I could just as easily put, 5, 7. Usually Asian paintings work in odd numbers. So that's what you'd be doing, is working with odd numbered leaves generally. But in the beginning, just put 3 on each one. And I'm flicking it at the end to get that little tail, but I'm constantly getting the tip to be sharp so that I can get the tail on my leaves. And now I'm actually going right over top of what's back behind there, right? It's okay. It's okay to go right over top of it. Okay. Here I'm going to have bigger, bigger leaves. There we go. Oh, this is so fun. So this is just, you could do this just with the black and gray. You don't have to introduce another color like I did right here. But it definitely takes a practice to get those leaves. Oh, see how it's bending? So now we're going to come back. I'm going to do this again. And then we'll do a little bit here, and then we'll call the bamboo done for now. But that's an idea of how you would do bamboo using these brushes. And we're going to move on to doing the flowers that I promised you for the workshop. But that is an idea of how to do the bamboo. Oh, I see that I left an area right here where I didn't put any of the little, there we go. A lot of times I'll revisit something like this, but this is done on the rice paper. Now let me show you the back. Remember how I mentioned that it can go through to the back? So you see how the ink has gone through to the back, but I'm just working on that piece of felt. So I can actually feel the felt is damp. All right. But that's why you use gray or black felt behind you as you're working. So that would need to be set aside on top of something to dry that you're not worried would get more ink on it, okay? So for instance, I'm gonna take the sketch pad, I'm gonna turn it, well, let's get another piece out of here for now. And then I'm going to put that on the back of here. I'm just gonna put it on there like that so that it can dry. Okay. Gonna set that aside. And if sometimes I do bamboos and I'm like, ugh, I don't like that. Okay. So I just fill the whole thing with bamboo and then I tear it up and use it for collages. Like I was telling you before. Yes, I just use it for collage. Okay. So now we're going to move on to doing flowers and the little butterflies and bees. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is out of the book, and it is working with orchids. And you would think, oh, orchids are so complicated, but actually they're not. So this is the sample that they give you, super simple. And here are the, see how they show the brush and how the brush moves. And so we're going to do an orchid. And we're not using black for this. You noticed it used color. So that's where the Sumi-e watercolors come in here. And this is by Yasutomo also. Um, and these are Japanese watercolors. So that they come in all different kinds of colors, but you can use the same brushes. That's how you're going to get the strokes that you're looking for, is by using the Asian brushes. So I'm going to move these aside for right now, these little cups. Sometimes I need some black ink and I dip back into the black ink, but for the most part, I'm just using these, and I'm using cups for color mixing. If I need to color mix, again, I have these little cups. Oh, look at that one, has a bunch of ink in it. Oops. Yeah. Okay, let's put these in there. These actually, I'll show you. If I dip the end of this in water, remember these are those other little ink pieces that I showed you earlier, and then I just go like this. That's why they're so good for traveling. There is a beautiful magenta red that I got out of this stick. Okay, I'm staining my hands. Typical, right? Happens all the time. And if I hit this with water, let's just have some water. Oops, there was ink in that. So if I just hit it with a brush with water, ta-da, I have watercolors just like that. Okay. So let me just do that in there. We might make an orange or something in there. I don't know. But so I normally will have that on the side. This was my little brush rest. So if I wanted to, I could put it next to it and just set my brush down if I needed to. Okay, so I'm going to use these two and set that other one aside. The other one, my favorites right now for color mixing are these really cool. This is a butcher tray, and nice size. They're like 4 inches or so. And so they're easy to hold. And that's one of my favorite right now for color mixing. All right. So let's do some green. We need some green for the this part of the orchids, right? That part. And so there is in here, there are two greens in here. There's one that has some white in it, and then one that's more of my mixing green. So this is too light, right? It's not dark enough. So I can either add some of one of these next to it, or I can add some black to it. And this kit does come with a black, so a Sumi black, or I can use some of the ink that I already had. So let's take this green right here, and I'm going to pick up some of that green. Now, let me get one of my favorite brushes. So no, this is still my favorite brush. Let's get rid of that black that's in there. So I'm going to take this green, and I have a little bit of black gray left on my brush actually. And so if you look up closely, you can see the black kind of blending with it, right? So these pans don't stay clean. They get all different kinds of colors mixed in with them. And if I want to see what the color is, I can just put it in there. See how that's like a dark green? Because it's some black and some green, like that. Now I want it to be a little more green, so I'm going to pick up some more green. You see these pans, these are watercolor pans, but they're large. You see how they're large? They're actually shallow, and that's because, see the size of my brush? So if it was the little typical watercolor pans, these big brushes wouldn't fit in there. So these large pans are designed to be used with the larger Chinese brushes, right? Or Japanese brushes. Ah, much better color. So I'm gonna dip this in water just a little bit because I wanna be sure the color's flowing off the brush. Oh, there's a hair. I don't know if you can see that. You see it there? Yee. I don't care how old your brushes are, they shed. Yeah, because these are old and they shed. These are years old. I've used them a lot. Okay, so I'm just going to follow along with what we have here for the in the book, and I'm going to start out putting my brush down, twisting the brush, bringing it up, pressing a little bit harder, and up. So there's one of the leaves of my orchid, and then I'm going to take another leaf here. Let's see, that's that one. I'm going to take another one here, twist it around to get it thinner, and then back the other way, and then up. There's another one. So that's how you can vary the how wide it is by twisting like this as you do it. Okay, and then there's a little one right here. There we are. So that's and then here they have a little one here, and then another little one coming off of there. Okay, so that's sort of created the framework for the orchids. I have all this color on here, but you know what? I'm just going to get rid of it. That's okay. It's okay. So I do have to clean my water pretty often when I'm working with this kind of ink, watercolor, because you see how dirty the water is. Plus, I always have multiple, like two, three. I have three waters here today because I'm always having to, you see, it's quite dark, even though I've already rinsed it off. There we go. Now it's gone. Yay. Let's move that, put this one here. Okay. There's still just down in the belly of the brush when I do this, I'm still getting a little bit of black out of there. Let's push down harder. And okay, that's better. There's still a little bit of black, but it's not too bad. Another strong color could overcome it. Okay, so I'm going to actually take the horsehair now. Let's do the shorter horsehair. Oh, that's the one that had the red in it. Perfect. So see here, they tell you exactly what to do to create the little petals. They show you exactly what to do with the brush. So I am going to take the red that I made from the little stick. It's actually not enough. So I'm going to grab some of um, what they have over here. I'm going to grab some of this as well, the Japanese, and put it in with that. There we go. Nice. So now I've got my red. Now this watercolor that I mixed in here is not permanent. It's regular watercolor, Japanese watercolor, so you can reactivate it. If I left it in here and let it dry, I could come back later with water and just swish it with water and it would reactivate that color, which is very helpful sometimes when you're working on a larger piece and you need to come back to a color. Just leave it in your pan and let it dry, and you can come back and pick up that custom made color, right? Okay, so I've got my brush with some of this red. So let's do a couple of orchids here. So right here, I'm going to do an orchid, and I'm pushing it down and then lifting it up. There's a petal. Yay! Now, see how my brush gets deformed from doing the movement? So I'm going to put it on its side, and I'm going to do another petal here, and I'm turning it to get that tip. I had turned it to get the tip to come out. And then let's get a little more color in here. Reshape the tip. You're constantly reshaping the tip. So this one, the end is not a sharp end. So when I moved it, I twisted back on itself. That's why it's important to do those exercises with the characters, the bone and all those others, because you want to be sure that your hand is nice and loose and doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, there's part of it there. And then we're going to come down and we do another part of it right there. Okay, there's one orchid. Woohoo! Now, the belly of this brush, this is a short brush with a fat belly right here. So my orchids that I'm creating right now are actually fatter than the orchids that they show here. Let me show you. You see how the orchids are coming out a little thinner there? And that's because of the shape of the brush, okay? And then the next one we're gonna put over here. Let's put it up here. So got one, we've got another one that comes out. It's okay to go over top. It's fine, it's fine. Let's get some more ink and reshape that. Let's go again. I want to go this direction and then come back on itself. And then bring this in here. And then one more petal. There you go. So that's that orchid. And then I'm going to do an orchid bud. So the orchid, let's see, where should I place it? Where should I place the orchid bud? Here, I'm going to show you in their final example here. They have a little bud right there. So let's just do a little bud. And we're going to do the bud. I think I'm going to do the bud right here. Now, interestingly, the bud is not completely red. There's some like light yellow green on the end. So what I'm going to do with my brush is I'm going to pick up some of that yellow that I created earlier just on the tip. So now I've got yellow on the tip and red in the belly, right? And I'm going to do this. And now I've got a bud where I have some yellowish green and the red like that. Okay, so you can, that's called tipping. You tip another color into the brush and then you can get various colors using that tipping method. Okay, So now actually we need to create the little stems that go with the orchids. So let's get a little bit more of that yellow and put it in here with the red. And we're getting something that's sort of like an orangish color, right? And we're going to use that to create the little, nope, we're not. We're going to get some of this. This is yellow ochre. So I'm going to pick up some of the yellow ochre along with it. Put that in here so I get a little variation on my brush. And then I'm going to come in and I'm creating my little, my branch, right? So I want this part of the branch to be a little bit thicker. And I want this to come there. And then it can come into there. So this is just, let's tip it with a little bit of yellow. So I've got a little bit of yellow in there just to give it a little extra interest, right? Like that. Bring it down. There's another little, we're bringing that into here also. Okay, so we've got the two orchids coming off of there. It's starting to come together, right? Now we're going to put, you you want to wait just a little bit to put the black bits in there, because if I put the black bits here in the middle too soon, they will just melt right into the damp part of the orchids. And I don't want that. I want to wait. So I'm actually going to, let's put a little, what do we want to do? A bee or a butterfly? A bee or a butterfly? I'm going to watch for comments here, and pick a color. Let's see, what color do I, let's do it this like amazing orange color. So this is vermilion, which was in this set, and it has a beautiful, brilliant orange color. So I'm just looking. I don't see any comments, so I am going to do the. I am going to do a butterfly. Let's do the butterfly. So I'm just using the same brush, and I'm going right in here into the vermilion so I can get. Don't worry that there's other colors in there. Whatever. This is we're painting, and so have fun. Actually, there are all kinds of, because I was doing that, there are all kinds of little dots in here, and it's all good. It's all good. That shows the hand of the artist. Don't worry about it. So let's do one of those little butterflies. And I was showing you before. Let me see where they are. Where are the butterflies? So you don't have to just use elements from one page. You can go back and forth between your various pages in your book. And so here's our little butterfly, and it's showing you the direction of the of your brush. So we're going to start over here with a little orange butterfly, and we're going to do this and then this. So that is our one of the uh, wings of the butterfly. And then there's this part here. And then we're going to do another. Now I'm putting the tip out this way and swiping in this way now. Before I swiped in this way. Now I'm swiping in a little bit to the side, and I'm bringing it in this way. There we are. And then I'm going to come up with this. There we are. So that is, now I want to come back here and adjust this just a little bit. There we go. So that's our butterfly. Ah. And that has to dry before I can put the black in, because if you look here, you put the little body, the little legs, the little antenna, they are black, right? But if I try to go in there right away while it's still wet with black, it's just going to go bleh everywhere. We don't want that. Plus, I don't want to use this brush, which has a fat belly, to do the little black accents. I want to use one that's thinner. And this Yatsutomo one that's small, you see how it's small and thin? Oh yeah, this is a good one for that. So I'm going to use this to dip into the ink right here. Let's reactivate that black Sumi ink, but I don't want it to be too wet, so I'm getting a lot of the liquid out of it. So it's relatively thick and I have a nice point. And now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put the little dots in here because this is already, it's not completely dry, but it's more dry. Normally I would wait. I would wait. You have to have patience sometimes with watercolor with your various layers. So here's what I'm doing is I'm putting these little dots in here, the tips of the stamen, right? Okay, there we are. And then over here, now I am getting a little bit of running, just a little bit of fuzziness, a little bit of softness around the edges there. Okay. And that's because these flowers are not completely dry. And I'm going in there and putting the black in. And so it's spreading a little bit, spreading, which is, it's fine. It's fine. And then here, okay, so you're just playing, putting a little bit of a few marks to indicate the stamen coming out. And now, yes, it's watercolor. So I can take a heat tool. So here's my heat tool, and I can use the heat tool on there and speed along the drying. Let's see. Yep, I don't want it to get too hot. But I have the leaves, I have the wings of the butterfly, but now I have to build the little body of the butterfly. And I want to use this nice small detail brush to do that. So let's get that going. Yes. There are little dots all over the place. It's okay. This is original artwork. So it is fine if things aren't perfect. It absolutely does not matter. Don't stress yourself over your artwork being absolutely perfect. I'll show you what I mean here. So when I was preparing for the workshop, oops, hold on a second. I have to make sure this goes where it's supposed to while it's hot. So while I was preparing for this workshop, this is one of the pieces that I made. And what you'll notice is I dripped some green here and I dripped some blue there. Can you see that? So, you know what? There's a little drip of blue here. There's a little drip there. It doesn't matter. This is original artwork. It's the hand of the artist. Imperfections are just part of the game. So just barrel through and breathe. Okay. Just breathe. You'll be okay. You do not have to worry about that. All right. Lovely. See how I just naturally hold a Chinese brush like this because I'm just so used to holding it from the time of being a kid. It's just natural. And my favorite are these bamboo handles. So this Yasutomo is a natural bamboo handle. Some of the brushes that I have actually have fake bamboo handles. So this is a fake bamboo handle on this one right here. But I love the ones, these old style ones. Some of these are from my parents who have passed away a long time ago, right? So this one is from Taiwan when we lived in Taiwan in the 1970s. And this is bamboo. You see what beautiful condition it's still in? So you can have these for a lifetime. All right. Did I yammer enough so this is dry enough? Let's see. Okay. It's most of the way dry. Ah, let's go back to the page where they're showing the kitty cat and the little butterfly. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Right here. We're going to put two dots for the eyes and then some little antenna and then some little legs. It's so cute. So I've got a nice tip on it. Let me make sure that it's got a little bit of paint in there, but not too wet. I don't want it too wet. What did I do? I just tamped it on the side here. It's not too wet. It's not sopping. Okay, with ink. There's just a little bit of ink on there. And then I'm doing this a little bit on the side so that you can see it on camera, but normally I would go in straight up and down. So I'm going to do it a little bit on the side for you. So there are the eyes. The little body, I'm just going to kind of do a zigzag like that to create the body. There's the body. Now let's do the little antenna. Okay, so again, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to rest my hand right here, but this is already dry. If it's wet, don't do that. And if your hand is wet, don't do that. But my hand is dry. This is dry, so I can rest my hand right here. And I'm doing it on the side so you can see it. And I'm just bringing it out. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm bringing this one out. Oh, it's so cute. Okay. My favorite part is the little legs. This is my favorite part, is doing the little legs. So it comes over and down and a very, super light touch right here. Like just the very hairs, like maybe there are 2 or 3 hairs that are doing this on the end. Oh, it's so cute. That's my favorite part, is putting the legs on it. Okay. So let me just bring that up so you can see. So you can see the little butterfly. Oh my goodness, the little butterfly is so cute. Okay. Each painting you do, also you learn something. Like for instance, I would want that butterfly to be a little not quite as dark and orange, because I'm going to come back again with that little tiny brush and I'm going to put some definition into the wings of the butterfly. So you know how butterflies have spots, right? They'll have little spots and little lines. So that's what I'm doing here. I have some spots. I'm doing some lines. I'm just putting some detail on there. Okay, so if you're going to add detail later, it's helpful if the color that you're putting the detail on top of is lighter. So for instance, the one that I made uh, during the week for you here, do you see how the wings are lighter? They're still orange, they're just lighter. So it's easier for you to see the details that I add on there. This one was a little bit darker, so the details don't show up as much, but they're there. They are there. So let me bring this up so you can see. There it is with the little details added in there. Now, of course, you want to sign it. You want to sign it. So I have a signature that looks like a Chinese character, but it's actually my initials: T for Tristina, E for Elms. And so I'm going to use the tip of the brush and I'm going to put my signature here. It looks like a Chinese character also because the motion of my hand is the same as I would do to create a Chinese character. 20, 25. Oh, here we go. So it is done and signed. Woohoo! Now, what I'm noticing looking at it, because I like to look critically at it afterwards, is that this red that I had mixed earlier, there was a little too much water in it and it spread a little more than I would like. It still produced a finished painting, but that will inform me for the next time that I do orchids in a similar fashion, that I will make sure that it's less juicy, less water. If I'm working on rice paper, if I'm working on watercolor paper, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to show you that next. So this was on rice paper. And then after it's fully dry, I give it a long time to dry. I don't know if you can see it, but the fact that water was on there made the paper buckle a little bit, right? So before mounting it on a background paper, like this one is on the bamboo paper, I would, once it's fully dry, I would put another sheet of paper on top and a sheet of paper on the bottom, and then put it between books and flatten it before I attach it to another piece of paper. Um, right now, I'm going to tell you how I attach it to another piece of paper, so that, because we're going to go to watercolor paper next and you don't need to mount the watercolor paper. So I use this Notice it's by Yasutomo. And it is called nori paste. This is a water soluble repositionable paste. Let me see if it has, it's a slow drying starch adhesive, which is great. It's non-toxic, super easy to use. Let's say that in the future, a conservator wanted to separate my this rice paper. You can see the rice paper hanging off the edge there. If they said, oh, we want to separate it from the backing paper and just have it be the rice paper, well, they could steam the back of this and steam a corner and it would slowly begin to pull off. That's the beautiful thing about using nori paste, is that if you're concerned about conservatorship for artwork that's going to be, you know, to last hundreds of years, then you want to use a product like nori paste in order to attach this to a stiffer background. Now, like I said, you don't even have to do that. Let's say you've done this, you're super happy with it. You would just put it onto, you could use artist tape on the edges. You would tape it right onto an acid-free backing board and then put your mat over top of that. So let me grab a mat here. I always have mats next to me when I'm painting because I'm constantly checking my artwork to be sure it'll fit right into the mats. So here's a mat, especially when you go to put your signature on something. It's helpful to be sure that it's going to fit inside the mat properly. So here is the piece of artwork behind a mat like that. So you don't have to mount it if you don't want to. If you're okay with, you see that little bit of waviness in the rice paper, that's fine if you don't mind that. I like to mount it so I can get it perfectly flat, but that's a whole other class, the mounting part of it. But I wanted you to know that it's possible, and this is the paste that you would use for it. There's actually Karen Elaine. There's a lady named Karen Elaine that works with Yasutomo, and she shows you how to use nori to attach these rice paper artworks onto your backing board. So Karen Elaine, I'll make sure to put a link to her YouTube channel. Um, or if I find the actual video, I'll put a link to the video in the description of the video on YouTube. Okay, now let's graduate to watercolor paper. And we're going to paint that image that I have put on my website, and that, let me set this one aside somewhere to dry where it's not going to get ink anywhere. So when you're working on watercolor paper, with the Japanese watercolors and inks, you don't need this backing paper because your watercolor paper should come on a pad or be thick enough. It's thick enough and heavy enough that it's not going to go through. Okay. So you don't have to worry about that. Plus, you don't have to worry about that crazy sort of buckling of the rice paper. So I love to use the rice paper. It's inexpensive. And it's perfect with these Asian brushes for doing your initial practice. Okay. But sometimes your practice turns out and you like it, which is like this one. And then I went ahead and I mounted it, and it's available right now on Whatnot in the buy now. It's blue. That one is Blue Morning, Blue Glory, Glories and Butterfly is the name of that one. Uh, Okay, so let's go ahead, and this is the hot press. It's the smooth. This is what I recommend that you start with um, if you're just learning these techniques, instead of going to the cold press, which has the texture on it. I love the textured paper because of what it does to the paint. But when you're starting out and you're following the book, you may be like, oh my gosh, why is it not doing what I want it to do? And it's because of the texture of the paper. Okay. If you're ever trying to paint and the painting is not coming out the way you think it is, there are two things you can change. You know, if you know you're using the right brush, because you can always change your brush. So maybe there are three things: change your brush, change your paper, change your water. So sometimes your water, especially when you're working with watercolor, will affect the way that your watercolor moves on your paper. And so sometimes it's the water by itself, sometimes it's the paper by itself, and sometimes it's a combination of the two. So if you're having trouble or you know you have hard water, then get yourself distilled water to use for your painting, okay? And that you'll be more successful with that. Okay, so I had provided you with this picture of the amaryllis lily that's over at my neighbors across the street. Just beautiful. And they just so happen to have in this book an amaryllis as well. There you go. And so they give you an idea of how to paint the amaryllis. They give you the steps here and all. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do it from this picture, but we're going to use the Chinese or Japanese brushes and the Japanese watercolors to do it. So I am going to take this picture right here and I'm going to put it up here so that I've got it available. We can all see it. I want us all to be able to see it. But again, you can print this off on my website. It's under the events page for this workshop, the events page. And if it doesn't show up on the future events page because we've already started the workshop, then you should be able to find it on the past events. You just tell it you want to look at the past events and then it should show it to you. Okay, so you should be able to see that now. Oh, I've got all my inks over here next to me. And let's see. Ah, this paper is so smooth and so beautiful. And I've got such dirty water. Okay, so I, of course, love my big long brush that comes to a nice tip because to me, this is the most versatile shape. Some of these shorter ones will give you just, if you're working with smaller flowers, the amaryllis has long leaves, so I'm going to work with the longer brush. If the flower has short leaves, then you can use one of these shorter brushes, shorter hair brushes to accomplish the shorter leaves. Okay. And I want to show you something here. It's not necessarily one stroke. For instance, this leaf right here is actually, or this petal is actually two strokes. So don't be afraid. It's okay. You can go back. You can, add more in terms of your strokes if your brush is not big enough to give you the full stroke to begin with. So um, let's start out. Let me make sure that this brush, oh, hold on a second. I've got lots and lots of blackness in this water. So on my I don't have a sink right here next to me in my studio at the house. So what I do is I just keep a big yogurt container, and if I have a lot of dirty water, I just pour it into the container, add a little bit more water here, swish it around. I'm going to use a paper towel and I'm going to clean that out and get some clean water going. Especially when you're working with the black ink. Wow, you have to change your water often. a lot, a lot. Okay, there we go. So I'm getting a lot of that black out of there. Nice. We'll pour that in there. A little bit more so we can have it clean, 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 clean. I mean, it's not completely clean, but that's okay. We're going to be putting a bunch of water in there, so it'll be fine. Let's take this one, put some more water in there. Now, I've shown before that when I put water into these containers, like this one is filled up for a different purpose. It's not filled up to rinse my brushes. Normally, I only put enough water in there so that it comes up to about here on the brush. This is called the ferrule that holds the hair. And then this is the handle. I try not to have the brush sitting with the handle in the water. So you don't need to fill it up all the way. I just fill it up to about here. And that allows me to not have too much water in there. Okay, so let's move that out of the way. Let's put this water out of the way. Dirty water, dirty water. Okay, So we're going to start with the flower and then we're going to build the stem and the leaves around it. Okay. We're going to use this big, beautiful brush right here. Again, if you weren't here earlier, this is a Chinese brush. You can see the Chinese writing on it. This is a modern brush. These are some of my older bamboo. Like, really, look at how ratty that is. Oh my gosh, because they shed over time, just like the animals that the hair comes from. It's crazy. So I'm going to use a nice long bristle because the flower that we're doing here has long leaves. And you'll notice that on these Asian brushes, they have a loop at the end. Do you see the little loop right there? So that loop is because when you rinse the brush out for the last time, you form the tip and then you hang it with that loop. I have an Asian brush um, stand that has little um, bits that stick out, and these go right on there, and they hang like that. And that's the best way for them to dry. Otherwise, you just put them on a paper towel and let them just sit flat like this. Don't put them while they're wet. Do not put them back into your. So this is my Asian brush container. While it's wet, I don't want to put it back in there. And the reason is because the water will collect in the ferrule and it'll damage the brush and then it can separate. Okay. So that's why you either dry it like this or you dry it like this. Okay. Using the little ring at the back end. All right. So we are going to draw this amaryllis. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. Let me look in the book because the book is fabulous for telling us what we need to do. I'm going to get this tip a little bit wet. And what color do I want here? Well, we have some mixture here, right, of the watercolor. This is actually very, there's hardly any color in there. So let's do this. I want to add a little bit of the orange. I'm going to start out super light because I can always go back over top of it and darken it, okay? So I'm going to start out by getting a very pale color here. This is a good way to start out. If you're starting out, start with a nice pale color. So I'm going to add a little bit of the red here, like this. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure there's plenty of water in there. Now, I don't have to worry about the water soaking into this paper because this is watercolor paper. It's designed to have the paint sit on top. So I don't have to worry about it soaking in like I did with the rice paper. And I put a lot of water in it, so I have a very pale color. And I'm doing that so that I can get an idea of where I want to put the flower. So I'm going to start with this bottom one right here. And so I'm holding the brush this way because I want the tip to be at the end down here. So I'm just doing this and I'm building a very pale version of it. Okay. And then there is like a tiny tip on the end there. Okay, that's that one. And then there's another one that starts, it's going to come up from here. And it's actually going to run into this one. And it has more of a, it goes this way more and that side. There's a little tip there. And then it's sort of shallow the way it comes up here. Okay, so we're just using the very lightest because we're going to come back and we're going to darken it. Okay. And then this one over here comes. This one, the end of it is not, it's not pointy, it's kind of rounded. So I'm not worried about it being pointed. I'm just bringing it like this. And it's actually kind of shallow, right? Compared to the other ones. I'm not worrying too much about the very middle of it. I'm leaving a little bit of white space because you see the yellow that's in the middle there, right? Now this one comes from here. Power of observation. I know I've talked about this before. in my workshops. So you really want to look at what you're seeing there and then paint what you see, which definitely takes quite some attention and learning to do that. Okay, and then there are two more over here. So one of them comes over here like this. It's coming in like that. And the other one is, woo, is a long one. See how I keep having to turn my hand here in order to have that tip at the end of the petal. Okay. I'm actually turning the brush. So as I bring it in, I'm turning it to create the shape that I'm looking for. Okay. There we go. So I want to leave some of the middle of it white because some yellow is going to go in there. Okay. All right. So that's the basic outline of that flower. Now I'm noticing that this one kind of sticks in there funny, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper towel, and at this point you can take a brush with just water on it. So there's no paint in here. It's just water. And that's why it's handy to have a clean water near you, because I'm just going to dip it in the clean water, and I can come back in here and I can pull some of that up. If you're working on watercolor paper has sizing on it, and it's designed to let you pick up some of the color. Okay, there we go. So that's okay. This obviously is a staining color, so not very much of it came out, but some of it did. Okay, I actually want to bring this one. That's why I'm working with a sort of a dull color to start, because right now I can see I want this leaf to come, or this petal to come down a little bit further this way. So I'm actually going to bring it like this right now. I'm bringing it down a little bit. And when I put the darker color on there, it will cover over where the under part was, okay? So layer, layer, layer. That's our initial shape for the flower. Then we've got another one back behind it over here. Now, this one, which was the photograph that I took, the trumpet is way over here. But what I want to do is I want to bring it in closer the way that this one is doing it here. So you see how these are much closer in view as the artist. Sometimes you need to make adjustments like that. Make the adjustments. Actually, this one needs to be a little bit wider. There we go. So work with the pale color first, and then you can come in with the bold colors, okay? Because it's a lot easier to clean up the pale colors with the bold colors on top. It's okay. It's okay. All right, here we go. So I want to put the other one a little bit closer than that, using more of the technique of the other one, the other Chinese Japanese show. Okay, so we're actually going to bring it over here. I'm going to bring this one in like this. So I'm sort of following the lead of these other leaves, the other petals right here, and bringing it in behind it. So this one comes up and then is wider, comes in like this. Okay, pale, pale, pale. Then there's a big one right here. It's going to come around like this. It actually folds over. This one actually folds over. Okay. And then we've got another one. Let me bring this up just a little bit. So I'm saving my bold strokes for when I get to the darker color. Okay. So I've got a petal that comes like this and in, and then I've got another petal that comes in here. So that's the one that's behind it right there. And I've done that with my pale, pale, pale color. So now what I want to do is I'm going to drop in that yellow before I go to the bright color. So let's bring in a different brush. Why not? We'll do a different brush. So for this, I can use a shorter brush to drop in the yellow. So I have yellow here, right, that I mixed from the block, but I can see that it's a very wet yellow. There's a lot of water in it, and I don't want that. So I do have a yellow here from the Gansai Tambi, it's a Gansai Tambi style. This happens to be Asutomo brand. And it's a little like, wow, it's super bright yellow. I don't want it quite that bright. So I'm going to use a little bit of the yellow ochre, which is my favorite, like warmifying color, the color to sort of knock it back just a little bit. There we go. That looks a little more honey-like. So a little more realistic. Not that we're doing anything realistic here. So now I'm going to, let's just drop that yellow in here. I'm looking at my image here, and I'm just dropping some yellow in. You may lose the yellow when you go to put the bold color on, but that's okay. Again, we're sort of we're developing the image is what I like to do. And there's a little bit of yellow here, a little bit of yellow here. All right, there's a little bit of yellow coming up. I'm putting little lines, little lines, little lines. I don't want it too wet, see? So it won't try to spread everywhere. Here, I'm bringing this up like that. A little bit of this. And then for this bottom one right here, oh, it's got a nice, nice yellow there. What I'm trying to show is the direction. If you look here, you can see it appears the direction of uh, the splaying out. So it's coming out from the center here, and you see the colors splaying out from there. Now, of course, I can color correct, or I can shape correct these later. I'm doing my initial design right here. Okay, so here's this yellow color, and I'm looking at my reference photo, and I see that on the back of this particular leaf, there's a whole bunch of this yellow, and it's coming down like this. And what's happening is it's coming into a yellow area right here. So I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to pull it down into there. There's a little bit of yellow on the back here. So I'm bringing that in. There's a little bit of yellow back in here. I'm bringing that in. So we're sort of tying them together. There we go. And I got a little bit of yellow in the red. So I dampened my finger and just got it off of there right away. That's one way of doing it, right? Okay, so I'm gonna set this aside. It has yellow in it. I can just get it damp again later and reuse the yellow. That's why I really like my brush rest over here that's next to me, right? My brush rest like this, because I've got the orange red, I'll have the yellow, I'll have some black, and I have some pink right there. They're just sitting here waiting for me to reactivate them and use them, right? Okay, so now let's go back to um, putting in the dark color. We're going to put in a darker color, and then we're going to build the stems around them and the leaves, and then we're going to go back in and put the little stamen in them. So this has a light version of these colors. Now we want to get we want to get much darker. So I'm going to get the brush wet, and I'm going to bring in this deeper red. You can, if you want, go straight from the pans and straight to your artwork. But you see how sort of cherry-like that is? If I were doing cherry blossoms, that might be okay. But um, I like to mix my colors. So that was sort of a magenta, and now I'm adding some orange to it. And then I'm happier with that color right there, instead of just taking it from the orange or the magenta. Okay, so I have a blend. Okay, so now I'm going to hold the brush more like an Asian brush, right? And I'm going to get a little more water in there, just a little bit more, just so the paint will flow off of it. Yes, so water control, that's what you're going to learn. That is definitely something you're going to need to work on and learn. Okay. See, now I'm going right over top of where I built the that first layer, and it doesn't matter. I think it's cool to see that under layer there. I think that's awesome. Plus that yellow will sort of lift its way up and through. Now I'm going to go on the side just a little bit here. Let's do this here. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do this here. See, now I'm covering up a bunch of that yellow, but that's okay, because I can come back in and I can build that in there. Okay. And then this is very dark in the middle there. Okay, let's pick up some more ink and more color. And I'm going to come right over here. And then same thing here. It's nice to already have a roadmap of what it is, where you want to go with that pale color. So do it. I know it doesn't say to do it in the book, but just from my experience, it's better. If you're learning, this is way better, way better. Okay, so now I'm building out the tips here, and I'm bringing some darker color. Now, the color's actually faded out a little bit, so I'm gonna have to dip back in here and make some more color, which some people freak out. They're like, yeah, but what if it's not exactly the same? Exactly, that's the answer. It's okay. It's a beautiful thing. You're painting. This is being made by hand. It should have variation. No stress, no fuss, no muss, okay? It is okay. Okay, I'm gonna bring this down a little bit more like this. I'll bring this in a little bit more like that. Okay, so I'm working around what I already have here. And it may not even be exactly the shape of what's in the picture, but it's okay. It's close. It's close. All right. So, oh yeah, we're building these up. It's okay to leave some white space. White space is okay. White space in painting, people are like, they feel like they have to fill every area. You don't. White space is good. Okay. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. On this side comes like that. And then this side goes more down like that. So you're just going to play with the angle of your brush. There we go. And these are called what? Amaryllis lilies. Amaryllis. Okay. The interesting thing about this one on the actual picture here is it has a ruffle on the edge. So let's see if we can do like a little ruffle here. Oh, that was fun. So I got a little ruffle going on the edge there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side a little bit. Nice. So I got a little bit of ruffle going there. Fab. And then we have two more petals to do here. So we have this one. It just comes up like this, goes out. Actually, it goes out this way. And then I'm twisting as I do it. Okay, twisting, bringing the belly of the brush down, twisting it up. Let's get that tip. There we go. And I may want to refine the tip here just a little bit more. Sometimes it's easier to come this direction to refine the tip. There we go. Okay. See, I'm not using too much crazy paint. I'm using just enough. Just enough. Okay, let's bring this one down and around and out. See, I'm starting to lose the color here. Let's bring this one around and down. Oh, yeah. Love that. I like to see variation in the colors. So some areas that are light, some areas that are dark. It's beginning to come out nicely. Now the interior here has a bunch of yellow in it. It's actually a little bit dark, isn't it? Because if you look at this picture right here, the interior there is going to be a little bit dark. So I can take some of this, what was it called? Yellow ochre. And I can just pull a little bit of yellow ochre into there. Okay, that's not quite dark enough. There's this other color, a burnt sienna, that comes in the 12 set. So I'm going to pull a little bit of burnt sienna right here. And what I'm trying to do is get an area that's just like a little bit darker, just a little darker. Not too much and definitely not too wet. I can test it on my paper towel like this. Still a little too red. Okay, let's make it just a little bit browner and a little more of this. So that's what I do is I just go back and forth and I play with the colors. And I'm actually going to grab a little bit of green. The reason I'm grabbing a little bit of green is that the opposite on the color wheel to red is green. And so if you want to tone down a color, you just grab its complement, the opposite, and it will darken your color just like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just bring, say, it's a darker color, darker variation of the same color that we have here. And that's one of the tricks to getting your darks is don't just grab a dark color or a black or a dark blue. Um, try to mix your dark color from the colors that are already in there. Okay, so let's see, a little bit darker along here, a little bit darker along here. Of course, if I'm like, it's too much, then what I can do is just put a little bit of water on there. Woo, water it down a little bit and just come in here and feather it out. Okay. So you can just feather it out with a little bit of extra water on your brush. It's okay. It's okay. I'm just trying to give it a little bit of drama, make it look like it's a little bit dark in the center there. Okay. So that actually worked very well. Okay. And looking at it right now, I'm like, oh, you know what? The center of it's going to be just a little bit darker, just a little bit darker. So I added just a little more green and I'm just dropping a little more in here. So you'll decide by looking at your picture how dark you want to go. Plus, as it dries, it's going to get lighter. So then you may say, oh, I need another layer in order to build the darkness there. Okay. But that's an idea of how just take a little bit of that green, stick it in there with that orange or red, and it'll very quickly, it'll darken the color for you. So I actually need to put some darker in here on the back of that, right there. And where else? I'm looking at this other The one in the back. Don't forget about the one in the back. So I'm trying to give it more dimension. Dimension here. So we'll go there. We have a little more dimension here. A little bit of dimension there, a little bit of dimension there. There you go. So you can sort of add the dimension in. Perfect. Lovely. Now, of course, in order to get the stamen to come out of the center, you have to let that dry because otherwise you won't be able to get it to, it'll just soak right in. Now, I'm going to point something out here, right here, that I had gotten some paint in a place where I didn't want it earlier. So now we can go to a special kind of brush right here. And this is a Willow's Blender by Velvet Touch. So this is a regular, we're working on regular watercolor paper here. So I'm taking a regular blender brush, I'm getting it damp. And then I can come in, if I'm using watercolor paper. Okay, you know why this isn't working? It's not picking it up. And the reason it's not picking it up, it's not picking it up well because these are staining colors. It's picking it up a little bit, but that's usually how I will lift paint that gets somewhere where I didn't want it to get, is I'll use a blender brush with watercolor on watercolor paper. Okay, so now let's work on the this part right here, the stem, the leaves, while this dries. So let's go to the one that has the yellow in it because we can work from the yellow in order to get the stems and the leaves. So let's do this, getting some water in there. This was the yellow ochre. If I work from light to dark, I can use these cups and just continuously let the color get darker, right? And then that way I don't need 10 cups here. I can just work with 2 or 3 cups and adjust the colors as I need to. So let's do this. Nice. I want a little bit of green in there, a little bit of green for the stem. So let's take a little bit of this green, just a little bit. Come on, green. Okay, cool. So now I have a color that I like, but it's a little too, like there's not enough water in it. So I just dip the tip in there. Okay, now the color's flowing a little bit better. Again, I could do it very pale with lots of water to do um, my initial stem, but this is fine. This is fine. So where do I want the stem to go here? I think I want, now also I can tip this. That means I can take this color and I can put it on the tip. And that way I have the green here and the kind of ochre yellow here. And so when I do this, to create uh, the little edge here, I have a combination of the colors. So there's that part of it. And then I'm going to do another little part over here, holding it on its side. And I've got a different color on the tip there. So let's, again, something you can't see is as I'm moving it, I'm turning it. Let me show you up close. I'm turning the brush. So that's even if you work with regular watercolors and regular watercolor brushes, try the brush turn. It helps to keep the tip more straight, okay? If that's something you're concerned about. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna add a little more green in with this. I'm gonna tip it a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to put the stalk. Where do I want the stalk? The stalk actually comes, here. So see how I'm working on my side to get the stalk to come down. Whoop. There. And now I want a little bit more of the green, and I want to, this actually has some stuff there. Boop. Okay, so that's the stalk for it. And if I want a little bit more green, I just tip it with green, and then I can bring some more of that green in here if I want to, just to add, to tie together the little bits there. Okay, so now I actually want to go with something green to create the leaves, right? So I'm going to take more of this green. And what am I going to do? I'm going to go right into here and begin to get some green variation. So let's get these leaves come out like this. And they're actually a little bit thicker than that. So I'm going to have to use the side of my brush. I'm going to do this one here. There we go. And I'm going to put, now I was just turning the brush as I did that. Okay, so I'm getting some of um, these various leaves out here. I can darken them a little bit. Oh, that's dark. That is dark. Actually, remember I said I can reactivate this? I want this kind of dark is what I want. So I just put some water in there and ba-bing, right? What did it do? It reactivated it. So I'm actually going to start from here and bring this down here and make it a little bit thicker like that. And then I'm going to bring this one, same color. Now I have the dark color. I'm actually going to come in and I'm going to build a second half to this leaf with the darker color. So now I have a lighter color and a darker color. You see the variation of the colors? And that's because if you look at these leaves, this side of the leaf is in the light and this side of the leaf is in the dark. Let's darken this one just a little bit more. Just added a little more darkness to that. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit more darkness to this one right here. Nice. Woo! Now, these two are in the light. This one's not in the light. But if I decide that I wanted it to be darker on this side, of course, I could come back in and add a little more on that side. And I can also dampen my brush here so it has some water in it. And I can do this and I can lift some of the color out of the other side. So you can always go back in and lift if you want to. And I actually want that side to be a little more of this light colored. So I'm going to drop in some of that light colored. As it dries, you can go back and forth and work with that. Okay, so you see that I'm working with different areas of the painting because I want it to dry. Okay, if I framed something and hung it in the bathroom, would it be okay? That is an excellent question. I'm going to answer that right now while this kind of dries. Okay. Um, Something I didn't show you a moment ago. I showed you, hey, I use nori and I mount my painting onto a backing board. Okay. That's if I'm working on rice paper. Now, any watercolor, I don't care what watercolor, whether it's the Chinese watercolor, Japanese watercolor, if you're using Daniel Smith watercolor, made in America, whatever watercolor you're using, if you want to hang it in a bathroom or anywhere that's going to be damp and hot. Okay. So excellent question. Thank you for asking that because then I can like let this dry while I'm answering it. You're going to want to use something called Dorland's wax medium to seal your painting before you mount it. So watercolors, you can use Dorland's wax medium on any fully crisply dry watercolor in order to seal it. And once it's sealed, it is completely impervious to water. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment and I'm going to show you what I mean. Because what I did earlier was I took this and I put Dorland's wax right here. Actually, I did this whole section right here. This is the rice paper, but you can also do it on watercolor paper. And so this part has Dorland's wax on it, and this part of the paper does not. I'm going to show you how to put it on in just a second. If I buy something, would you be able to put that on? Absolutely, Grace. Yes, absolutely, I can. Because I have the beautiful Dorland's wax and it works great with this kind of thing. So what I do is I use a cotton rag. So I cut up a sheet, or you can use an old t-shirt. Where did I put them? Here it is. So I use this. It's actually a little bit stiff from the Dorland's wax being in it, but this is an old uh, pillowcase, old pillowcase. But you can use an old t-shirt as well. Now I'm going to do this on here. This is the watercolor paper, just because it's a pad and it's stiff. I'm going to put this on here. And I'm going to show you right now, and then I'm going to do some. So if I take this just a brush with nothing in it, I'm just going to take some water. And normally ink would run if you get it, or watercolors are going to run if you get them wet again. But because this has Dorland's wax on it, I can put water on here and nothing happens. And do you see the water sitting on top of there, of the paper? It completely seals it. It's awesome. Dorland's wax is awesome. And that protects it. So it's going to protect your watercolor from either from any kind of dampness. It just soaks into the paper. Now here's one. Let's see. This is permanent ink, so it's not doing anything to it. It's not hurting it. But if it were a regular watercolor, it would just lift right back out. So yeah, Dorland's wax. Now, this is how I use the Dorland's wax. This is what it looks like. Just white wax. It's a colorless. This comes out colorless. Some people do it with their fingers. I like to use this cotton cloth, 100% cotton, and I pick some of it up like this, and then I rub it. Sometimes it can slightly darken the color, but it's fine. Do you see any color on there? Nope. Even when I do watercolors. Sometimes if the watercolor is really thick on watercolor paper, sometimes a little bit of the color will come off on here, and then I just move to another spot. But I haven't had it smear the watercolor at all. So I put it on like this, and then I let it, the wax has to get like stiff or hard. And then I come back with another one later and I buff it. So like this has some of the Dorland's wax on it here. I would buff it like this to get any residue off. Now what it'll do is it makes the surface a little bit shiny. I don't know if you can see that, but this area right here is a little bit shiny because it has Dorland's wax on it. But yes, if it's a watercolor, you don't have to worry if a painting is an acrylic painting. The acrylic will work in the bathroom just fine. But if you want to put a watercolor painting in a bathroom, it needs to be sealed in some way. And this is the magic sauce that seals it. So thank you for asking that question. Oh, yeah. Can I show you? Remember, the link to it will be in my in the description of the video on YouTube tomorrow. It's called Dorland's Wax Medium, and it's by Jacquard. There's the company, Jacquard. Can you see that okay? I think so. Yeah. Let's see if I bring it up a little bit closer. And then there. That's what it is. Awesome sauce. So thanks for the question. I appreciate it. And yes, I'd be happy to treat any painting that you might buy with something like that. Woo. Okay. So let's set that aside. Let's go back to this. Ooh, I love it when you ask me questions and then my watercolors have a chance to dry, right? Now I'm noticing that this painting is like over here on the page. One of the things I want to do is I want to grab my mat, right? Partway through. I always learn so much from your shows. Ah, thank you. Is that Florida Glass Girl? Thank you, Florida Glass Girl. So this is this paper is 11 by 14. This is an 11 by 14 mat. Now, I don't know if you're aware, this is a standard 11 by 14 mat. See how wide it is here? And this is a narrow, see how much more, see how much more narrow this is? So if I'm working on 11 by 14 paper, I like to work with the narrow mat, okay? Um, so I will lay the mat out and I'll see, okay, where is my composition? You know, how do I want this to lay out on the page? And of course, I have lots of white space over here, which is just beautiful for putting a couple of little bees, right? Or putting a bee. I want to put a bee in there. This is also important to have your mat for when you want to determine where you're going to put your signature also. Because if I was just going la-di-da-di-da and I wasn't paying any attention to how I would ultimately mat it, I might put my signature in a place where it would be covered up by the mat, and that would be a travesty, wouldn't it? We don't want that. Okay, so a bee. This has Okay, I'm throwing paint everywhere, which is why I always have to make sure that I wear a an apron, right? So I'm actually going to get some of that out of there. And you can just take a little bit of water here and clean water. So I always like to have clean water. I'm getting the green out. And the reason is because I want to make a couple of bees. And so the bee is going to be a slight orange color. Okay, right up. Let's see, where do I want to put the bee? Where do I want to put the bee? This is going to go here like this. Yeet. Yeah. Okay. So I probably, want to, it's so hard. That's why I'm like, I want two bees. Maybe I'll put three bees. I'll put a bee here, a bee here, and a bee here. Making me crazy. But I'm only going to show you one. Okay. I'll do that off screen because we are getting along here time wise. Okay. So let me create an orange from here. How am I going to do that? Well, I have orange here, but remember when we did the little butterfly on the other piece, how it was like, woo, it was super, that orange was super rich, like too much. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of yellow to it to make it a little more pale. So here we go. Grab a bunch of yellow. Lovely. Now I've got a light orange, right? Remember how I said if you want to go back and you want to add little marks, and with the bees, we're going to go back and add marks. So here, let me show you a bee in the book. The book. If you weren't here earlier, this is the book that we're working from. It's Walter Foster, Watercolor Series Chinese Brush Painting. Ah, fabulous book. Absolutely fabulous. And so let's look up the bees. They're so cute. Look at that. Look at that. See the little bees right here just playing? They're so stinking cute. And they tell you how to do them right here. So I'm going to show you. I will put, and it's going to be the orange for the body, but not too orange because we want to come back and put little black stripes on it. Okay. So I'm going to do this one right here. And I'm holding it down a little closer, not quite so far back. Normally I hold it right about in the middle for large strokes like this, but right now I'm holding it up a little closer because I want smaller strokes. So I'm gonna do the body of the bee like this. And then there's the little back end of the bee like this. There it is. Okay. And it's okay to connect them up. And then there's too much there, too much water in there. So I'm going to take a paper towel, fresh paper towel right here. Boop. And if there's too much water, just use the very tip of the paper towel like that and go like this and just tap it in there, and it will pick up that color because otherwise it takes forever to dry, right? Okay. So I just picked up a little bit of the color there. Easy peasy. So that's one of them. I'm going to put the bodies of all of them here while I'm at it. Let's see. So this one right here, I want to do the little top of the body here. And then the back end, I'm going to put down here. Yeah. Oh, they're so cute. These little bees are just so cute. And way simpler than you would think. And then I'm going to do another one over here. So here's the head area. And then here's the sort of the back end of it. Eek. Connect them together. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to, they're a little too wet, all of them, because I added water to that, right? So I'm just going to take an edge and then pick some of it up. It's twofold. I don't want it to be too dark, and I also don't want it to take forever to dry. So I'm just picking a little bit of that up. Okay, there we go. Come on, paint. Okay, cool. That'll work. So those are some little bees. And then the next thing we want to do with the bees is create the little wings. And so I need some black. Remember, I was using this earlier, so it already had black on it. Oh, yeah. Actually, there's way too much black on this right now. So I'm going to get it wet, and then I'm going to go to, I can either go to my stone, or remember this had gray in it, remember? But it's like too black right now. So I'm going to have to add a lot more water to it. It's easier on watercolor paper to work with wetter paint than it is on rice paper. On rice paper, it just soaks right in, but on watercolor paper, it doesn't. So I can add a whole bunch of water to my brush to get that gray, and it'll be perfectly fine on the watercolor paper. It's way easier to deal with on watercolor paper. Okay, so we are going to bring a wing in here. There's one of the wings. There's another little wing over here. So you want the wings to be gray. And then we'll bring another wing over here and another wing in here. Oh, so fun. So fun. You guys are gonna, I hope you try this because it is just so fun. I love doing these little bees and the little butterflies. Okay, here we're going to do a wing right here, and then another wing right here, just in gray, right? It's nice. You can just, it's super easy, but you want to be much lighter on the black to get your little gray wings in there. Okay, lots of water to get the gray. Okay, and then this one is going to have a wing up here. There we go. And then a wing over here. Sometimes I have to change the shape of the tip there. And then we'll have a wing right here. You probably didn't notice, but I turned the brush as I was putting that wing on, okay? Definitely. Even when I do acrylic painting, I turn my brush, turn my brush. Try it. Try it. You're going to be like, whoa, Tristina, that was an amazing tip. Yeah. It does help. It does help. Okay, let's do this. Yee! Nice. Okay, so we have our little bees with their flippy flappy wings. So cute, right? And perfect. They can dry while we come into here. And what I'm going to do here is I need to build those little wisps that come out, and they actually are like a dark brown. So I'm going to work back into the orange, but I'm going to bring in a bunch of this. Remember, I still have black on here, right? That's okay. Because what I want is I want a dark brown, more brown. Yay. There's a nice dark brown. Woo, it's actually too dark. Too dark. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow ochre. Yeah, yellow ochre warms your colors up. Nice. So now I have a beautiful brown. Can you see it there? Fabulous. Fabulous. And that brown's going to be used for a couple of different things. One is it's going to come here. So we've got these little things that start in here and then come up like this, right? And then they're going to have little yellow things on the ends of them. There we go. Like that. On the amaryllis, there's actually one that comes out. Let me do this one. Right, there's one that comes out and it has a dark statement on it. Now over here, I can do it this way, right? Because something's going to be potentially sticking out over here, like that. And we'll have the same sort of feel for it. And that's it. There are none that really go up, up, up. Okay, cool. Another thing we can use this for is to create the veins on the leaves. So for instance, this leaf right here, I'm going to put my hand here so I'm steadying my hand. And I'm just going to, starting with like that. So I'm adding a little definition in there. Here, I'm going to add a little bit of definition. I'm actually holding my hand like this to steady it, okay? So I can get a good stroke. Like that. It actually disappears underneath there. And then this one, also, there's going to be just a little bit of it showing like that. And then a little bit more maybe down here. What I'm indicating is that the inside of the leaf, the center of the inside of the leaf is showing, okay? So I put those in there. All right. Now I'm going to set this aside because, right, it doesn't matter if it dries on there. I can just add water and reactivate it. Easy peasy. Okay. So let's put some yellow on the ends of those. What do we have here? What color do we have here? Ah, I need another cup. Come on, cups. Okay, I'll just use one of these because I've used up all of my other ones. Okay, not the color here is not dense enough. It's very wet. So I'm going to take some of this yellow like this, and I want to get a dense. It's almost, if you pick this paint up with lots and lots and lots of paint on your brush, it's almost like a gouache. It'll almost sit on top this particular Gansai Tambi. Or if I want to be sure it sits on top, what I'm going to do is throw a little bit of white in with it, right? I can pick up some white here. So this set of 12 comes with a white. And if I add the white, then it turns it into a gouache and the color will sit on top. So these actually have these little yellow, but I wanted the little yellow ones to sit on top, right? So I have to add a little bit of white to it to get it to sit on top of that red. And then over here, we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put these little, oh, so cute. So cute. All right. And here I'm going to put a little yellow underneath this one. Okay. So that, and see, it doesn't matter that there's yellow in there and blue in there. Every so often, I'll just go and clean it up, that white, just by getting it wet. Okay, lovely, lovely. So far, let's go back to the bees. Oh my goodness, they're so cute. Are they dry enough? I don't know. Let's see. Let's use this. Let's use this. So I hope if you're on Whatnot, you'll take a few minutes and go in and take a look in the buy now, because I have a few. If you type in the word glories, Glories, you'll find the morning glories that I did. And the morning glories were these, they're paintings like this. There's this one. There's this one that has the little bee on it. There's this one that has the butterflies on it. I have both greeting cards and I have the originals are out there. Oh, the only original that's not out there yet is this, I call it purple, the purple morning, the purple glories, because um, the original is not out there yet because it's on rice paper and I have to treat it with Dorland's wax first and then mount it with the nori paste on bamboo paper. Okay, now this actually has the brown on it, but I'm going to darken it. I'm going to darken it with black. Okay, so that it's like a dark, 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 dark brown black, which is fine. All right, so now we've got the little bees. We're going to put little eyes on the bees. And then we're just going to put little tiny antenna on the bees. And then we're going to put little feetsies like these, the little feet. And then here we're going to put little feet. You know how their little feet sort of hang out the back end of them? Oh, they're so cute. And then there's a little mark there. And then we're going to put little lines on their hindies, just like that. They're so cute. Okay. I'm making sure wherever I put my arm that, this is more or less dry. I don't want to smudge anything. Okay, so this bee, we're going to put the eyes here, and then we're going to have the little antenna, and then we're going to have their little feet, and then we want a little line on the back. We want to put their little yellow jackety marks on them, right? And then we want to do their little flying back feet that are so cute. There's that one. And then here's another one, little eyes, little antenna. Oh, and little antenna goes like that. Their little feetsies, yeah, like that. And then their little feet back here. They're so cute. And then the little mark on the back. And then these little marks. Oh, aren't they cute? They're just so cute. I love the Asian aesthetic. I think it is so fun. It's so fun. And look, I have beautiful brown paint that if I go back to the next painting session, I've already got brown paint there. I've already got a gray black paint here. I have a green. I have a red orange. So these are, when they dry, I just stack them like this. These are cool, these little plastic ones, because they have little nubs on here. That's so that you can stick your brush on there and it holds your brush in place. But at the same time, it holds the one separate from the other just enough so you can stack them like this very easily. And they're fantastic. And this one, like I said, this little that I use the block on, this one, I just let it dry on there, and then the next time I come back and I just put water on it and it will reactivate it. All right, let's see. I think I want to put my signature on here. Let's put this here and see what we're looking at. That's so cute. Let's bring that back over there. I'm looking, I'm looking. What do you think? Hey, that looks cute. A row. What are they called? Um, it's a type of lily. Amaryllis. Amaryllis. Yeah, amaryllis. So that's the amaryllis. And like I said, this, when I write the article, so love those bees, right? Florida Glass Girl, they're like, they're so simple and they're so cute. I love them. I love them. Just a couple of colors, very simple. So if you haven't signed up for my newsletter yet, go to my website, deetsart.com. And there is a place there to go. There's a menu item called newsletter. So if you go in there and you put your email in, then I will let you know when paintings like this are released, meaning that they're available for sale, are available to invest in, to purchase, or when they're also when the articles are up. So each, of course, I will have an article for this project, and this photograph will be in the article, which is your reference photo. And that's where you can find the reference photos for any of the projects that I teach. And I'll also put the links to the book and to the paints there and the paper and all the goodies so that you will have that information. Oh, this is fun. Now, I think it's time to sign it. I don't know how much is there paint. Yeah, there's some paint in there. So if I just go like this, whoop, just want to make sure that my signature will be within the window when I mount it, right? So there is the signature. And, sometimes I'll look at my artwork and come back and be like, oh, I need to fix this. I need to fix that. And that's okay. It's, I, I may decide tomorrow to change, modify, add, whatever. But I try not to do that very often because I know that, I feel like often um, if you rework something, you overwork it. So I try to just let it be if because I won't be in the same creative space the next time I go back for it, right?